Chapter 168 Adamantal Crocodile Python. Chapter 168 Adamantal Crocodile Python. That roar seemed like as if it was emitted by an ancient giant beast, giving off loneliness and vicissitudes of life, but also full of majesty and intimidation. Both Chen Xiang and Lu Menjie halted their footsteps. They were secretly worried that there was a powerful ancient demon beast inside the island. At present, they were unable to use their true qi. If they encountered any powerful demon beast attack, they could only escape. Lu Menjie held her long spear while walking in front with a serious look. She frowned and said, "Be careful, if there is a powerful demon beast that attacks us, you disregard everything else and escape. Leave me alone. I have a way to deal with it." Chen Xiang didn't answer. He just had a serious countenance while being vigilant of the surroundings. Both of them had already entered inside the forest, and in here it was very quiet, so quiet that it would make people somewhat fear it. There were lots of weeds in the forest, and they were very difficult to cut. They had very strong life force. The trunks of the trees were also very thick, making Chen Xiang somewhat puzzled. The spirit qi here was so rich, surprisingly, there weren't any odd flowers or strange ses, all of them were just some weeds. There is some movement. Lu Menjie suddenly stopped, clasped her long spear. She was ready to act at moment's notice. It had already been half an hour since they have entered the forest, and they were about to reach the center. After arriving here, their nerves became even more taut. They became exceptionally vigilant. If there was any sign of trouble, both of them will immediately know. "Be careful!" Chen Xiang and Lu Menjie both quickly shouted at the same time, while simultaneously brandishing their respective weapon in hand. Lu Menjie thrusted her pretty long spear, while Chen Xiang had also slashed out his broadsword. Both of them attacked towards the same direction, and both of them had equally attacked with their strongest power. In their opinion, even if it was a relatively powerful spirit beast, it would at least be wounded by the attack of their divine weapons. However, who knew that only sparks would burst out, with a dang brittle sound? They only felt their weapon attacking a very hard thing. Chen Xiang was very shocked. Although he had not poured true qi in the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade, it was very sharp. With his powerful physical strength, he had brandished this blade. Even if it was a grade 3 spirit beast, it would have been easily sliced into two. Lu Menjie too was similarly surprised. The hard body of many spirit beasts had been pierced by her kiss of the jade dragon. However, now, when she had thrust at that thing, it was unusually strong, which was why a powerful resistance returned back at her, making her beautiful hands numb. Both Chen Xiang and Lu Menjie jumped up at the same time. At this time, both of them were able to see what had suddenly attacked them. Surprisingly, it was a creature similar to a giant python. This beast is from the ancient period known as the Adamantal Crocodile Python, Lu Menjie said in a dignified tone. This Adamantal Crocodile Python had a water tank-sized thick body, with a head like a giant crocodile. Its whole body was covered in gray scales one after another, which looked a bit like a crocodile's skin. The Adamantal Crocodile Python, with its pair of golden eyes, directly stared at Chen Xiang and Lu Menjie. It suddenly opened its jaws, revealing its sharp teeth which looked very intimidating. They were perfectly sure that the mysterious beastly roar from before wasn't emitted by this Adamantal Crocodile Python. After their previous attack, Chen Xiang and Lu Menjie knew that their weapons had no effect on this Adamantal Crocodile Python. From high to low, this beast's whole body was as hard as adamantal. Although this guy had a very stout body, it was not a little bit slow. At this moment, Chen Xiang and Lu Menjie were on high alert. The Adamantal Crocodile Python quickly swung its pointed tail. Its tail was like a sharp spike, thrusting towards Chen Xiang. Simultaneously, the Adamantal Crocodile Python rammed its giant head towards Lu Menjie. This Adamantal Crocodile Python unexpectedly used its head and tail at the same time to attack two enemies. Because its whole body was as hard as steel, it didn't fear any attack on its humongous body. At this point, Chen Xiang and Lu Menger could only dodge. If they had their true qi, at present, it would not be so hard for them. However, the scales on the adamantal crocodile python made Lu Menger extremely excited. This was a very good material for refining equipments. Whether it was used for refining armor or weapon, it was a top-grade material. Truly worthy of an ancient species, although it's just a grade 5 spirit beast, relying on its innate abilities and indestructible scales, most people would not dare to attack it. Long Shui, this little dragoness, was unexpectedly very excited. This made Chen Xiang secretly curse her. At the same time, Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu were thinking of ways to deal this tough ancient period spirit beast. According to legends, during the ancient period, the spirit qi between heaven and earth was very rich. Strong martial artists were as many as clouds. As for the demon beasts, in order for them to survive and obtain even more powerful strength, the demon beasts wedlocked to make up for their own weaknesses. After the birthed cubs reached adolescence, they would become strange species, very tough. Most of the ancient strange beasts were as such. However, with spirit qi getting thinner, and with the appearance of more powerful humans, ancient strange species slowly disappeared. The demon beasts were also badly degraded, and most of them were evolved into some wild animals in the mountains. Does this guy have any weakness? We cannot go on like this, it will consume all of our strength. Chen Xiang didn't brandish his blade to chop on that thrusting spear-like tail. Instead, he just dodged it sideways. The adamantal crocodile python was simultaneously attacking using its head and tail. Surprisingly, its body was also quickly slithering, forcing Chen Xiang in a steady retreat, destroying many of those huge trees in the process. It was also very difficult for Lu Menger to cope, because the adamantal crocodile python was also spraying its stinking venom one after another. The trees which were sprayed melted in blink of an eye. In conclusion, the poison was very strong. Idiot, hit at the 7-inch area below its head asterisk. Although this snake is very large, however, its vital point is also similar with the common snakes. Look for that spot and strike. Long Shui tenderly shouted, I thought you knew about it, no wonder you didn't attack originally, you didn't even know it. Chen Xiang, in his heart, was astonished. He had also thought about it before. However, he felt that it was not tangible to apply for this adamantal crocodile python. It must be known this adamantal crocodile python's whole body was covered in very hard scales. If a blade was slashed on it, only sparks would burst out. Besides, this adamantal crocodile python was very powerful too. Sister Menger, the 7-inch. Chen Xiang shouted. At this point, he could only follow Long Shui words. Lu Menger, seeing Chen Xiang was already making preparation, realized that there was no time for any pondering. She soon followed in Chen Xiang's attempt. Chen Xiang's feet were sliding, his figure was like a snake, and in a flash, he arrived at the 7-inch location of the adamantal crocodile python. He could only grit his teeth as he raised the azure dragon, slaughtering devil blade high, and using all of his might, he hacked down like lightning. The 7-inch was just a notion, it refers to the weak point of the snake. Although the adamantal crocodile python was humongous, as an alchemist, Chen Xiang could also determine the so-called 7-inch of this snake. Deng, a brittle sound resounded, though it sounded the same as before. This blade strike made the adamantal crocodile python madly wriggle. Its humongous body in this sierra was tumbling and struggling, raising a lot of trees to the ground. Lu Menger, seeing that it was working, lightly leapt, jumped high into the air, identifying the 7-inch location of the adamantal crocodile python. She swooped down and directly plummet. The sharp spear tip, refined using the white jade dragon bone, suddenly pierced into the body of the adamantal crocodile python. The adamantal crocodile python was struggling even more severely, blood was constantly plussing out from that place where it was pierced. Lu Menger's thrust had succeeded, and she immediately retreated, while Chen Xiang swooped over once again and slashed his blade. Although he was not able to cut off the adamantal crocodile python, the impact from the strike still made the adamantal crocodile python feel sharp pain. In this way, Lu Menjur and Chen Xiang, one after another, took turns and continuously attacked the vital point of the adamantal crocodile python. In just a brief period of time, that 7-inch place were riddled with many holes. That place had become even more vulnerable. Chen Xiang, after exerting all his strength in his blade, was finally able to cut the adamantal crocodile python into 2 pieces. *TLN. Chinese saying, a snake's weakness is 7 inches below its head. Hit snake hit 7 inch. Which means if you want to kill a snake, aim for 7 inches below its head. Chapter 169 Divine Armor's Owner. Chapter 169 Divine Armor's Owner. Those 2 pieces of the adamantal crocodile python twitched for a while, before it moved no more. Both Chen Xiang and Lu Menjur sighed in relief. They carefully went over to confirm whether this adamantal crocodile python was alive or dead. It was truly difficult. Chen Xiang let out a deep long sigh. If he had not cooperated with Lu Menjur, it would have been truly difficult for him to kill this beast. He had realized there was still a very large difference between his and Lu Menjur's strength. Because Lu Menjur was able to pierce the body of the adamantal crocodile python, however, he was unable to do it. It was all due to Lu Menjur piercing many holes at the vital point that he was able to cut the adamantal crocodile python. Half and half for each, Lu Menjur said. If I want the monster Dan? Chen Xiang asked. After all, that was a very valuable thing. I said half for each. The monster Dan can also be cut in half. Lu Menjur replied, and then she received the adamantal crocodile python into her storage ring. Let me take care of it for now. When we get out of here after you get the black tortoise adamantal armor, I'll give you your share. You should know that relying on our current strength, it would be very difficult to cut this beast's corpse. Chen Xiang nodded his head. Even if he was able to use true qi, if he wanted to defeat the adamantal crocodile python, it would still be very difficult for him. After all, this was an ancient strange beast. Lu Menjur contributed the most. The fact that Chen Xiang could even get half could be considered very good. In his mind he was secretly happy. He actually obtained so much very cheaply. However, if it was not for his idea, Lu Menjur wouldn't know at what time she should strike there. They continued on their way. At this point, they were very close to the heart of the island. They were able to see a hill in the distance. The shape of the hill was exceptionally similar to the shape of the island, very much like the Black Tortoise Mountain, as if it was the smaller version of the Black Tortoise Mountain. At the foot of the hill there was a cave. Seeing this cave, Chen Xiang and Lu Menjur accelerated their footstep. They felt the Black Tortoise adamantal armor. They stood at the entrance of the cave, before eventually and cautiously went in. After they decided to enter, even if there was a pot of burning oil ahead, they would still continue to walk. Inside the cave, it was extremely dark. Lu Menjur was walking in the front, and was doing so very slowly. At almost every step, she would observe her surroundings first before taking another. She was worried there might be traps here. Slowly, half an hour passed. They had finally arrived at the end of the cave where they saw a sarcophagus. Open together. Lu Menjur moved to one end of the sarcophagus. Her voice was filled with excitement because the sarcophagus very likely stored a divine weapon. Chen Xiang nodded his head. He too was similarly excited. Both of them exerted force simultaneously. As the lip opened, an intense white light broke out, dazzling Chen Xiang's and Lu Menjur's eyes. That white light soon disappeared as they both immediately looked to see what was inside the sarcophagus. Surprisingly, they saw a pure crystal case present inside it, which was very similar to the time Chen Xiang obtained the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade. Inside the crystal case, there was a set of clothes which looked like it was composed of light golden scales. It was a complete set of pant and HI plus RT. Inside the case there was also another small box. Chen Xiang reckoned that there was a Dan inside it along with a beast skin. Lu Menjur took a long deep breath. Her pretty face was filled with shock and excitement. You see those fingernail-sized scales? There are countless spirit veins above each of those scales. How was this thing forged in the end? While speaking, she reached out her hands towards the crystal case. However, just as her beautiful hands touched the crystal case, she uttered a tender shout. She fiercely retracted her beautiful hands. There was a painful look on her face. That expression would make anyone feel sorry for her. Are you okay? Chen Xiang asked in concern. Lu Menjur nibbled her lips. She gradually shook her head and said, while slightly panting, there is a very strong rejection force from it. If I kept touching it any longer, I'm afraid I might have vanished in a puff of smoke. You be careful, even my level of body was not able to withstand it. Do you have a white jade, Dan? Chen Xiang nodded his head and hastily took out 2 boxes and handed them over to her. Is it very serious? Fortunately, it's just a little damage to my meridians and muscles. With the white jade, Dan, I should be able to recover soon. Lu Menjur's complexion was still somewhat pale. She looked very weak, which made Chen Xiang very worried. The black tortoise adamantly armor truly cannot be taken away so casually. As Lu Menjur spoke, her face was giving off an aura of fear. She was sure that even if she could use her true qi, she would still not even dare to touch the crystal case again. This was not the first time Chen Xiang had seen this type of crystal case. He also ran across it when he obtained the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. Back then, he had directly grabbed the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. However, now that he saw Lu Menjur's appearance, he too didn't dare to try. Now he was sure that a very powerful figure had intentionally left these divine weapons in the Qinwu mainland. The Vermilion Bird divine weapon had already been obtained by Lu Menjur's parent. You cultivate the divine exercise of the 4 symbols. I think these should be left by another pract. 1. Tionir that cultivates this martial exercise. However, you currently can't use your true qi, so it is very difficult to determine. Su Meiyao said. She also didn't had any definite ideas or clues. Chen Xiang slowly took a deep breath and took out a piece of the HEL Spirit GRASS. The instant he placed it inside his mouth, Lu Menjur hurriedly dissuaded. You better not try, it is very dangerous. However, not only had Chen Xiang had touched that crystal case, he also took it out from the sarcophagus. Ha ha, the black tortoise adamantal armor is mine. Chen Xiang suddenly started madly laughing. With a look of disbelief, Lu Menjur stared dumbfoundedly at Chen Xiang. She could not help but once again touch that crystal case. However, she once again uttered a sharp scream. The sharp pain made her feel as if her body was struck by lightning. Blood had already overflowed from the corner of her mouth. Chen Xiang hurriedly dropped the crystal case and grabbed Lu Menjur's tender body. He took out a small piece of HEL Spirit GRASS and made her swallow it. This made her complexion much better, and she soon woke up. Thank you, Lu Menjur said with a light sigh. With a strange look on her face, she glanced at Chen Xiang because nothing had happened to him when he touched the box. Yet on the other hand, she had almost lost her life when she touched the crystal case. Chen Xiang mischievously laughed. You wasted a little bit of my HEL Spirit GRSS. Later on, when you divide the adamantal crocodile python, be sure to give me a little more. Lu Menjur softly snorted and said, Humph, really stingy. With all her knowledge and experience, it was very difficult for her to explain this strange phenomena. She could only assume that Chen Xiang had way too many secrets. Just a moment ago, she thought she was going to die. If it wasn't for Chen Xiang's timely help of the HEL Spirit GRASS, she probably would have died. Chen Xiang had saved her life. She had no choice but to acknowledge this fact. The next scene made Lu Menjur clucked her tongue. Chen Xiang swung his fist towards that crystal case and fiercely pounded on it, blowing it into smithereens. Afterwards, he picked up those originally sealed set of clothes. Feeling the black tortoise adamantal armor, Chen Xiang's whole body jolted. The black tortoise true qi, in a steady stream from his dantian, flowed into the black tortoise adamantal armor, making it suddenly glitter in golden aura. Lu Menjur has been watching this entire scene. She was unable to see what means Chen Xiang had used. He didn't even bled on it to have it recognize him as its owner. He also hadn't done any sacrificial refining. He just simply took the black tortoise adamantal armor and produced this scene. It was as if this ancient armor had recognized Chen Xiang. The following scene made Lu Menjur even more shocked. The golden light exuding from black tortoise adamantal armor suddenly started moving. Like water, it slowly squirmed onto Chen Xiang's body. Meanwhile Chen Xiang's eyes were closed. It seemed as if he had entered a strange state. Lu Menjur's lips slightly parted. With wide-open eyes, she looked at the spectacle in front of her. The black tortoise adamantal armor was flowing over Chen Xiang's whole body. Suddenly, it seeped into Chen Xiang's clothes, and its aura also slowly faded away. She had heard that the black tortoise adamantal armor would be awake every 10,000 years to find its master. It seems that Chen Xiang was the master the black tortoise adamantal armor had been waiting for all these years. How did this happen? Lu Menjur wasn't able to understand anything. She just understood that Chen Xiang had a lot of confidential secrets. Chapter 170, The Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. Chapter 170, The Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. Chen Xiang felt the black tortoise adamantal armor integrating into his body, as if it was becoming a part of him, merging into his skin. As long as he wished, he could release the black tortoise adamantal armor at any time. The black tortoise adamantal armor had disappeared. Chen Xiang's body had also returned to its original appearance. As he opened his eyes, he started laughing madly. Accompanied with his laughter was a golden aura that broke out from his body. A scale armor dress glittering in golden light was revealed on his body. It was a complete set of clothes, along with a pair of boots. It looked very mighty and domineering. This is the black tortoise adamantal armor, Chen Xiang said in ecstasy, and glanced at the domineering armor on his body. At this point, it seemed his body was coruscating in a strange atmosphere, similar to a heavenly god disdaining the whole world. This made Lu Menjur unable to take her eyes off of Chen Xiang. For the very first time, she felt attracted to this man. This newfound feeling was strangely wonderful. Now, Chen Xiang not only possessed the black tortoise adamantal armor, but he was also able to use his true qi. This made him feel like he was invincible inside the black tortoise mysterious realm, like he was the ruler, the god of this realm. With a single thought, this mighty and domineering golden full-body armor suddenly disappeared from Chen Xiang. While the dazed Lu Menjur also quickly regained her sense, and a tint of red appeared on her haggard, pale yet still pretty face. Her heart was pounding quickly. This kind of feeling just now made her nervous, shy, and somewhat helpless. Various kinds of feelings had come flooding into her mind, making her somewhat at a loss. "Sister Menjur, how are your injuries?" Chen Xiang asked with a mischievous smile. At the moment, he was feeling very good. Originally, he had decided that, after obtaining the black tortoise adamantal armor, he would leave the black tortoise mysterious realm. However, now that he found himself able to use true qi, he wanted to kill some demon beasts in here. Lu Menjur was still a strong martial artist ruling an empire, so she quickly quelled her fretting feelings and dismissively said, "Much better. Congratulations, you were able to get this divine armor." Lu Menjur only felt jealous and envy now. Chen Xiang now possessed two peerless divine equipments. Chen Xiang sat down on the ground. With a mischievous smile, he stared at the extra small box. Inside it, there was really a Dan. He didn't know what type of Dan it was, so he directly gave it to Su Meiyao for studying. Afterwards, he opened that beast skin. Black Tortoise External Strength Technique. Chen Xiang read with a frown, the cultivator of the Black Tortoise External Strength Technique has to be psychologically prepared. The process is very rough, however the cultivator will gain a great deal of benefits. This is what we discovered together, Sister Menger. Do you want it? I'll make a copy for you. Chen Xiang said. No need, it's not for me. Lu Menger refused. Chen Xiang took out the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, smiled and said, Now that there is the opportunity, I'll let you take a look at my Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, and you let me take a look at your Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. He set the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade on the ground. The blade's body looked very RSE. However, upon a closer inspection, one could see numerous small spirit veins above it. Lu Menger looked at it with rapt attention. When she reached her hand out to grab it, she could not help but frown because she was unable to move it. Before, she had been injured by the crystal case, and had not yet fully recovered. Chen Xiang also didn't speak. From the side calmly looked at this haggard beauty, which would make others feel pity. Lu Menger seriously observed the spirit veins on the blade body. Unconsciously, an hour pious said the H-E-L spirit GRS. Efficacy was very good, and Lu Menger had recovered a lot in this hour. She was now able to pick up the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, and just as Chen Xiang had said, it was very heavy. She estimated it currently weighed a good tens of thousands of jin. Lu Menger took out a square crystal, and slightly smiled towards Chen Xiang. I will now record these spirit veins on this crystal above, may I? As you Wisconsin H. Plus, Chen Xiang laughed and said. Currently, he was in very good mood. Not to mention, he and Lu Menger had gone through fire and water together. Although there was a difference of heaven and earth between the strengths of two, there were not any hard feelings. With the square crystal, Lu Menger skimmed over the two sides of the blade. Looking at that crystal glittering in a white light, an excited look covered her face. Afterwards, she returned the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade to Chen Xiang. Sister Menger, let me take a look at your Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon now. Chen Xiang retrieved the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade and hurriedly said. He was just curious, that's all. However, he saw Lu Menger's face was slightly red and seemed to be thinking about something. Her pretty face was getting more and more red more with time. She was getting very shy, but there was a different kind of charm in it. If it's inconvenient, never mind. Upon seeing Lu Menger was somewhat embarrassed, said, Chen Xiang could not help but imagine things. This made him even more curious about the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. Lu Menger nibbled on her lips. After thinking for a good while, she faintly said, During my childhood, my parents came back after a long trip from the outside and handed me the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon. At that time, they didn't know what it was, they just knew it was a very powerful divine weapon and held some relations with the Vermilion Bird. They also didn't tell me where they obtained it from. Besides, right after they returned, they went into closed-door training for a very long time. It seemed they were very seriously injured. Chen Xiang listened very carefully. It was very important to him because there could very well be the details which could give him a clue about the very last divine weapon of the four symbols. This weapon was a very, very long ribbon. We didn't know its use, but once I wrapped it around my body. Afterwards, a transformation occurred and it changed into a transparent ribbon. Since then, it has wrapped around my body and it's hard to take it off. Ever since, it's been on my body. Although this happened, it didn't affect me negatively, on the contrary, it helped me greatly and saved my life many times. Lu Menger said with a slightly red face. Chen Xiang now understood why Lu Menger was embarrassed. Said. After all, the Vermilion Bird Divine Weapon was on her body. Thinking about this point, Chen Xiang's heart was slightly moved. A transparent ribbon was wrapped around her body that seemed extremely tempting. Chen Xiang stared at Lu Menger and that impressive chest. He mischievously laughed and said, "It's been bridled but can still grow so big." Lu Menger uttered a snort and said, "Although it is wrapped around my body, I do not feel its existence. When it touches water, it would disappear, as if it was very afraid of water." Chen Xiang replied, "No wonder, the vermilion bird is fire while the black tortoise is water. That's probably why when you touched the black tortoise adamantal armor, you received such a big backlash." Lu Menger also nodded her head in agreement. "Now you understand, it is very inconvenient to allow you to take a look. However, I will not take advantage of you. But you must promise me, you cannot speak about this matter." Chen Xiang's heart was suddenly jolted. He had an astonished look on his face. If the vermilion bird divine weapon was wrapped around Lu Menger's body, if she let him take a look, wouldn't this? Thinking till there, Chen Xiang fiercely swallowed his saliva. This made Lu Menger's face red. She scolded in a low voice, "I'll only let you take a look at my back, don't even think of looking at the front. Can I touch? After all, you had touched my azure dragon slaughtering devil blade for long." Chen Xiang said with a nasty laugh. In his heart, he was elated. With tightly knit elegant eyebrows, Lu Menger stared at Chen Xiang. Her face was filled with resentment. She didn't know why there was such a change in Chen Xiang's attitude. If it was before, she wouldn't even glance at him. However, now she felt less conflicted about Chen Xiang. Unconsciously, a complex emotion once again surged in her heart. She slightly nodded her head. "You cannot touch for a long time." Chen Xiang was startled. Originally, he was just kidding. He had not expected Lu Menger to actually agree. He nodded his head and smiled. "Maybe I have a way to wake up the vermilion bird divine weapon." Chen Xiang guessed that Lu Menger had no vermilion bird true qi and thus was unable to awaken the vermilion bird divine weapon. However, it seemed that the vermilion bird divine weapon had already recognized Lu Menger as its master, so it would still follow her. Lu Menger was also slightly antic. 1p. Aiding this, she knew that Chen Xiang had been able to control the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade and the black tortoise adamantal armor. Chapter 171 Sleeping Divine Weapon. Chapter 171 Sleeping Divine Weapon. Lu Menger had decided to let Chen Xiang take a look at her vermilion bird divine weapon. However, at the same time, she was also a little embarrassed. As said, she would need to take off her clothes in front of Chen Xiang, and it was somewhat difficult. Facing her back against Chen Xiang, she steeled her nerves, slowly untied those white tight robes reining her body. Chen Xiang, while holding his breath with wide-open eyes, stared at Lu Menger. This enchanting undressing motions, it was very enticing. In his heart, ripples of excitement broke out one after another. Lu Menger only undid her upper garments, but even so, it was more than enough to send Chen Xiang in a trance. Her creamy white tender back and graceful sleek waist, they were impossible for Chen Xiang to not be tempted. Chen Xiang was clearly able to see a layer of very thin transparent ribbon around Lu Menger's body, making it look even more attractive. Lu Menger's both hands were crossed and covering her chest. Her rosy face was even more beautiful. As she clenched her teeth, she said in a low voice, "Try to see if you can awake this vermilion bird divine weapon." Only at this time did Chen Xiang regain his senses and focused his attention on that transparent silk. Previously, when he was directly staring at her beautiful back, he was swimming in his imagination. He rubbed his hands and went over. Feeling Chen Xiang gradually coming closer, Lu Menger could not help but feel tensed, if not for spending so many days with Chen Xiang, and if she had not understood Chen Xiang, she would never dare to do such a risky thing. From the side, Chen Xiang could see that Lu Menger's beautiful hands simply could not cover those round snow-white peaks, and seeing this, blood once again rushed to Chen Xiang's head. At this moment, Chen Xiang could not wait to embrace this peerless beauty's back. However, he just thought about it. He reached out his hands and touched that silk on Lu Menger's body, and just as he saw those snow-white pretty shoulders of Lu Menger shaking, Lu Menger let a low moan. Stroking that warm, creamy, beautiful back across the silk ribbon, Chen Xiang secretly praised. He could not resist anymore, so he lightly caressed a good few times, enjoying that kind of stunning feeling he got from his hand. While Lu Menger nibbled her fragrant lips, her heart was madly pounding. She was feeling extremely shy. While touching, Chen Xiang could not help but lean his head over, inhaling that innate body fragrance wafting off that Lu Menger's delicate body. Feeling a certain warmth approaching her, Lu Menger turned her head and tenderly shouted, "What are you doing?" Looking at Chen Xiang, whose head was leaned over, she immediately became angry from shame. However, she was unable to do anything. She could only grit her teeth and scold him. Chen Xiang knew that he couldn't go too far, so he just continued stroking that wrapped silk ribbon on her enchanting back. However, nothing happened like before. In the past, as long as he touched those divine weapon of the four symbols, a transformation would occur. However, as of this moment, nothing was happening. "You may need to pour some of the vermilion bird true qi?" Su Meiyao let out a soft snort, looking at Chen Xiang taking advantage of other parties so cheaply. She very much despised his actions, and she was secretly unhappy. Chen Xiang began operating the vermilion bird true qi. However, at this time, Long Shui suddenly imitated his voice and said, "Sister Menger, your body is truly exceptional. Can you let me hug you?" "Dead girl, shut your big mouth." Chen Xiang hastily scolded her with his divine sense. As Lu Menger heard him, her tender body quivered. At present, both her hands were over her chest, and she did not dare to randomly move. She was worried that if she removed her hands, Chen Xiang might come in front and take a look. "Chen Xiang, do not push your luck," Lu Menger said while clenching her teeth. She was somewhat angry. She didn't expect that Chen Xiang would suddenly play as a hooligan. "Just joking." Chen Xiang gave a hollow laugh and said. He hastily poured the vermilion bird true qi into that silk ribbon. "This is true qi?" Lu Menger's voice was quivering. She was horrified. If Chen Xiang was able to use his true qi, she was simply not Chen Xiang's opponent, and if Chen Xiang wanted to do something to her, she would simply not have any power to resist. Chen Xiang pursed his lips and said, "Don't you trust me? Although I was a little bad, I will not do any outrageous things." Suddenly, Chen Xiang frowned. He discovered that his vermilion bird true qi was rapidly disappearing. He knew that this vermilion bird divine weapon was about to be activated, just like when he acquired the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade and the black tortoise adamantal armor. During those times, something similar to the current situation had occurred. Lu Menger was also very astonished. She could feel that the ribbon wrapped around her chest was emitting a fiery red aura as a warm current surged into her body, making her feel the strength of the vermilion bird divine weapon. This made her feel as if she was integrating with the vermilion bird divine weapon. Chen Xiang retreated a few steps, and with a surprised look on his face, he looked at the fiery red aura that was wrapped around Lu Menger. He exclaimed, "Sister Menger, are you all right?" "I'm fine. I feel that I'm fusing with the vermilion bird divine weapon." Lu Menger's voice was carrying her excitement and exhilaration. This vermilion bird divine weapon had followed her for many years, so she already had a deep sentiment for it. However, due to the lack of the vermilion bird true qi, she was unable to awaken the vermilion bird divine weapon. But with Chen Xiang pouring the vermilion bird true qi, it had finally occurred. Chen Xiang sat on the ground, watching Lu Menger as she got drunk in joy while firelight was wriggling around her. In his heart, he sighed. Originally he was thinking of collecting the divine weapons of the four symbols. However, now the vermilion bird divine weapon would definitely not go to him. "I absolutely cannot be lacking. I will refine it myself." Chen Xiang clenched his fist, determined. He knew that this would take him a long time. "Chen Xiang, this woman got so many benefits, you should ask her to give you a little reward. Maybe stripping naked and letting you have a look, or kiss you or something." "Hey, hey!" Long Shui, This little dragoness roguishly laughed. Her laughter was full of sarcasm. Dead girl, what do you think of me? I only have complete admiration for her. I don't have any wicked thoughts. Chen Xiang scolded in a low voice. You wait for me, better not let me find the opportunity, otherwise, I will spank your little s till it's swollen. Good fellas, I'm afraid. Oh, Sister Meiyao, Sister Yu, you must help me. Long Shui intentionally made her voice filled with fear, which then made Chen Xiang secretly clench his teeth. He knew that this naughty little dragoness had already hit off well with Su Meiyao and Bai Yu. They would usually talk with their divine sense, and Chen Xiang simply had no way to snoop what they were talking about. The fiery red aura enshrouding Lu Menger had disappeared. The silk ribbon wrapped around her body from before had also disappeared. Lu Menger opened her eyes, her beautiful face was filled with joy, which added to her exquisite charm. Lu Menger turned around, facing Chen Xiang as she warmly smiled and spoke, Thank you, you let me have this divine weapon. At this instant Chen Xiang's whole body was burning. He felt warm current rush. Plussing into his head, blood almost gus. Plussing out from his nose. Because he saw Lu Menger's front directly. Looking at her, he saw those two round voluptuous snow-white peaks of hers, and those two tender red spots on them that were dazzling in a different way. Without any reservations, they were all visible in front of him. This kind of beauty made Chen Xiang's heartbeat and breathing stop. It was as if the whole world had suddenly stopped, and this kind of impact made his mind blank out. However, he had also seen equally mind-blowing figures before. He had seen Bai Yu and Su Meiyao's jade-like bodies, so afterwards, he had a certain amount of resistance. Sister Menger, how about you first get dressed? You like this is just making me extremely embarrassed, said. Chen Xiang, at this instant, finally regained his senses. His face was fluid teared, and there was an awkward smile on his face as he spoke while turning his head at the same time. Lu Menger finally reacted. Her face suddenly became extremely hot, red to the ears. At this moment, she suddenly remembered that she was bare-chested. Previously, in a moment of joy, she was carried away. Fusing with such a powerful divine weapon, she had forgotten this matter in an instance of momentary pleasure. After the shock, she hastily turned around and wore her clothes. Chapter 172. The Vermilion Bird's Tender Thread. Chapter 172. The Vermilion Bird's Tender Thread. Anyhow, Lu Menger was also the type. Of some forces in a region. She had lived tens of thousands of years, however, she had never appeared this shameful in front of a man. At this moment, she could not wait to erase the memory from before, because it was truly shameful. Although she secretly cursed Chen Xiang, this was not Chen Xiang's fault at all. If not for him, she would not even know that the thing which had accompanied her for all these years would be this powerful, not to mention that if it wasn't for him, she would never have truly acquired this thing. Fortunately, in her heart, she didn't Chen Xiang, on the contrary, she had a kind of indescribable affection for him, plus he was also quite handsome. All of these combined was the reason why she hadn't really taken it to her heart. Lu Menger got dressed, turned around, then shyly glanced at Chen Xiang. Afterwards, she lowered her head, her face completely fluid teared. Chen Xiang looked at her and incessantly clutched his head. He too didn't know what to say, nor how to get past this very embarrassing atmosphere. Cough cough. Sister Menger, note for the next time, just a moment ago, you made me very embarrassed, said. Chen Xiang dryly coughed twice. This sentence of his made Lu Menger wish to ruthlessly step on his feet. Without even asking, he got see a part of her which no man had ever seen, and now he had the gall to say something like this. Chen Xiang waved his hand, mischievously smiled and said, Forget it, no need for me to apologize, no need to take it to the heart. Lu Menger stamped her foot and clenched her teeth with a light snort. For the first time in her life, she had seen such a shameless man. It was as if she had forced Chen Xiang to look at her, and in her opinion, Chen Xiang very cheaply got an advantage from her. Little rascal, never ever spoke of this to anyone. Lu Menger's voice became cold. Rest assured, even if I speak of it, no one is ever going to believe it. Chen Xiang laughed and said, How is that vermilion bird divine weapon? What's it called? As he spoke the vermilion bird divine weapon, Lu Menger suddenly became excited as she spread her arms apart, and a fiery red ribbon appeared in her hands. It now seemed that she had forgotten about the previous matter as she excitedly said, Its name is the vermilion bird's tender thread, which is also fire attributed. The finest it could become is like this silk thread, and in the biggest and the longest state, it could be as big as a giant mountain. If poured true qi in it, it could also spray out very intense flames. Usually, I can also wrap it around my body to act as an armor and resist incoming attacks. However, it could also be used as a weapon. In simpler words, it has lots of usage. While speaking, the vermilion bird's tender thread in her hand suddenly became a silk thread. With Lu Menger's control, that tender thread was the same as a flying nail, which then penetrated into that sarcophagus. Controlling it once again, the vermilion bird's tender thread suddenly transformed into a ribbon, spewing out an intense fire, making that sarcophagus burst open. If it penetrated the body, it would be an understatement to call it frightening. It's not just a thread. Lu Menger tenderly laughed and once again played with the tender thread. The instant she waved her hand, countless fine threads appeared like a net. Through her precise control, those countless thread, one after another, were tied onto stones, and with another wave of her beautiful hands, those stones of various sizes floated along with those countless tender thread. At present, the tender thread is very stiff. Lu Menger spoke with a sweet smile and a certain cutesy in her voice as she controlled the vermilion bird's tender thread in a variety of ways. Chen Xiang, in his heart, was very astonished. If a person was suddenly penetrated through these many tender thread, wouldn't that mean that that person would be under the control of her palm? The vermilion bird divine weapon's form was not that surprising to him, but its power was totally unexpected. This is extremely useful for catching demon beasts. Lu Menger retracted the vermilion bird's tender thread. Her forehead was full of fragrant perspiration. However, she was very pleased. Menger sister, can you use your true qi? Chen Xiang asked. Lu Menger shook her head and doubtfully looked at Chen Xiang. Nope, the only reason I can use the vermilion bird's tender thread is because of the true qi poured by you before. How can you use your true qi? Besides, your true qi is very special. As if this vermilion bird's tender weapon needed your true qi in order to wake up. Chen Xiang smiled. This was originally my confidential secret, not even Xian knows about it. It's not that I don't wish to tell it, it's just that the martial exercise I cultivate is very enviable and also very famous. I fear it will bring trouble to Xian. But I can tell Sister Menger. Sister Menger is very strong, that's why I am not worried. Chen Xiang had already decided to pass the vermilion bird divine exercise to Lu Menger. Anyway, he felt that there was no gap between him and Lu Menger anymore, as if they were best friends, not to mention he needed very strong and formidable martial artists. Before, Chen Xiang had said the vermilion bird divine exercise to Wu Qianqian, that was in order to save Wu Qianqian's life. If you want to better use this vermilion bird's tender thread, you need to cultivate this martial exercise. I'll now pass it to you. Chen Xiang sat on the ground, and indicated Lu Menger to also sit down. Lu Menger, after some thinking for a while, asked, Are you simply going to teach it to me? Chen Xiang mischievously laughed and said, You think I want something in return? If so, then can you kiss me? Humph. Lu Menger uttered a tender snort, angrily glared at Chen Xiang. Thinking about Chen Xiang seeing her body a moment before, her face could not help but turn red again. This time, Chen Xiang had already begun speaking some of the chanting formula. Lu Menger quickly wrote it down, and at the same time, she was extremely surprised. She was a Nirvana realm martial artist, and she could naturally see how profound the Vermilion Bird Divine Exercise was. Although it was very esoteric, she could still relatively understand it. Half a day said by, Lu Menger had completely memorized the Vermilion Bird Divine Exercise. As she gratefully looked at Chen Xiang, she spoke. Xian have a very good husband. I'm also relieved. I'm truly appreciative of you. Chen Xiang grinned and said, No need to thank me, you had already thanked me after. Hey. Humph, do not mention it. Or I'll punch you. Lu Menger angrily spoke. Though Chen Xiang's character was indeed good, there were still some bad points, otherwise, she would have already been gnawed by Chen Xiang till not even her bones were left. Chen Xiang stretched his tired waist and said, Let's go out and take a look. I want to kill some demon beasts. I'm not a queen like you, not lacking any crystal stones. You know I'm a queen, yet you don't know how to respect me. Lu Menger ruefully retorted. Who told you not to act like a queen in front of me? Chen Xiang faintly smiled and said. Lu Menger just uttered a tender snort. She discovered that she simply could not afford to be an empress in front of Chen Xiang. It wasn't like that. She would be oftenly molested by Chen Xiang and would be easily deceived with just few words. She herself didn't know why she couldn't withstand the fierceness of this young boy, and she could also not think of doing anything terrible to him. Previously, she had tested Chen Xiang's anger, but she didn't want Chen Xiang to hate her. After they left the cave, Chen Xiang and Lu Menger were very shocked, because outside was now completely different. Their location was still the island, however. Contrary to the original scenery of many tall trees and variety of weeds around the island, all kinds of spirit herbs had now filled the surroundings. What the hell happened here? Chen Xiang looked at the ground, which was now full of spirit herbs. With the scene before him, he could not help but suck in a mouthful of air. Metal spirit tree, 1,000 vein tree, 2 of each, and there were more than 20 fruits on each of them. These were part of the materials for refining the building foundation dan. Xianzhen Jiare. SS, 10,000 spirit tree, grand elemental tree. These were the materials required for refining the true elemental dan. There were tons of them, and the ground HI plus Ning in a white glow. It was the white jade skeleton GRA. And there were many of them, as if they were just weed, growing everywhere. 10,000 years old ginseng, 10,000 years old blood ginseng, various spirit GRA, SES. And other various commonly used auxiliary herbs were also present in front of them. They were like turnips and carrots in the farmlands. There were just too many of them. Both of Chen Xiang's eyes were glittering as he excitedly said, Sister Menger, I'm an alchemist. These are very useful to me. Quickly help me pick it up. Chapter 173 The Fertile Island. Chapter 173 The Fertile Island. This chapter is sponsored by Kurizu. Chen Xiang quickly flew up. He first picked up the fruits above the 1,000 vein tree and metal spirit tree, and cautiously dug them up. He wanted to take them back to the extreme Dan King courtyard and plant them. Sister Menger, help me dug the white jade skeleton GRA, SS and the other spirit herbs. Quickly, maybe those guys will arrive soon. Chen Xiang urged. Lu Menger uttered a tender snort. It was also the first someone had ordered her. Not to mention that it was such a dirty work, however, she still started digging the spirit herbs. For her, these spirit herbs didn't amount to anything, she didn't really need them. But because Chen Xiang had helped her too much, she obviously wanted to somehow pay him back. From Chen Xiang's arm, a white light quietly flew out as a cute little rabbit, running on the ground littered with herbs, suddenly appeared, and whatever it touched, it would all disappear in a blink of an eye. Dead girl, why did you come out? Chen Xiang hastily scolded. It was that greedy little dragoness who was running, but without any scruples, she just charged at those herbs, and fortunately, he had already collected some of the relatively precious herbs. I could not resist, they are just too delicious. I could not resist. Long Shui excitedly shouted. In this place, mainly the herbs for refining the true elemental Dan and white jade Dan were growing here. But compared to the herbs for refining the true elemental Dan, the herbs for refining white jade Dan were more abundant. Majority of these were either middle-grade or high-grade spirit-level herbs. This is the Raising Soul GRA. SS. Chen Xiang saw a white GRA. S coiled around like a top, and he could not help but exclaim. This was the main herb for refining the low-grade profound level Dan, elemental spirit Dan. It was also the herb Chen Xiang had been looking for so long. The recipe for the elemental spirit Dan had been circulating around, however, the herbs had long disappeared out of nowhere. He didn't find them in the Danxiang Tower. Elemental spirit Dan was a true profound level Dan, and it was unlike the building foundation Dan, which was so easy to refine. It was mainly used to cultivate the divine sense, and if he had this kind of Dan, it would allow him to cultivate SHI+ faster, because at present, his SHI+ infant soul was just too young. There were not many of this kind of GRA. There were about 100 of them, so Chen Xiang hurriedly collected them, to the point that he even dug out their root. According to the records, this Raising Soul GRA. Would need at least 2,000 to 3,000 years before it could mature. Once matured, it would be as tall as a leg. All the Raising Soul GRA. Present before Chen Xiang's eyes were already matured. Chen Xiang looked around, and soon he saw only a thumb-sized flower. He was also lacking this little flower. These herbs were hidden below some of the herbs. The petals of these little flowers were exquisitely carved. They looked truly beautiful. After Chen Xiang saw those flowers, his whole body was quivering in excitement, because it was the second of the main herb required for refining the elemental spirit Dan, the divine spirit flower. It was a kind of herb which would absorb the spirit chi of heaven and earth and would produce a large amount of ownerless divine sense, making it an extremely rare herb. There were only 100 flowers, so Chen Xiang once again quickly started picking them up, lest Long Shui, this little greedy dragoness, would eat these herbs. 10 days quickly pass. Said, all the herbs around them have all been completely picked by Chen Xiang and Lu Menger. According to Chen Xiang's estimation, from these herbs, he would be able to refine 800 building foundation dawn, 10,000 true elemental dawn, and 5,000 white jade dawn. However, he still lacked some of the other herbs. For example, for the building foundation Dan, he needed the azure profound fruits and monster dawn. For the true elemental Dan, he needed spirit crystal essence, and for white jade Dan, he needed the white spirit essence. However, this was not a problem. Chen Xiang looked around the now fully dug desolated ground. He laughed and said, I'm rich. As long as he had refined those herbs into dawn, he would certainly be rich. Long Shui had also ate well, and had already returned on Chen Xiang's arm. However, she complained to Chen Xiang that he had already taken away all the good herbs. She didn't even get to see them. Lu Menger was also busy for these 10 days and 10 nights. She wasn't able to understand how Chen Xiang could bear to make her, a charming beauty, to work in the fields, which was a very tiring work. Before, this place could have been covered by an illusion array, and what we saw was just an illusion. After you had obtained the black tortoise adamantal armor, only then did the illusion array disappeared. Lu Menger looked at the surroundings. She discovered how the surroundings have changed too much. This is not a realm within a realm, but a very large dreamland, and the only reason why we could directly come here was because we were going downstream. In other words, the place we came through before was nothing but an illusion. Lu Menger ate Chen Xiang's dan, and all the fatigue she had these past few days had also disappeared. Chen Xiang nodded his head. He was not a bit tired because he could use his true qi. He was just about to spread his vermilion bird firewing, however, Long Shui suddenly spoke. First, don't fly. There is a place in this neighborhood which seems to be exuding a very strong death chi. There should be a lot of dead demon beasts there. Seeing Chen Xiang, vermilion bird firewings. Lu Menger was secretly envious, however. She now also knew the vermilion bird divine exercise, so she too have the vermilion bird firewings. Because Chen Xiang had taught her this powerful divine exercise, she was really moved. Sister Menger, there seems to be a good thing around here. Chen Xiang mischievously smiled. The last time this mysterious realm was opened was 10,000 years ago, and only due to rich spirit qi was it able to breed out so many good herbs. Long Shui had already told him the way, so Chen Xiang just walked towards the side of the island, while Lu Menger was following behind him. Although she didn't come here to obtain the black tortoise adamantal armor, the vermilion bird's tender thread on her body had been awakened, so it could be counted as a big harvest. Through the forest, they arrived at the edge of the island. Surprisingly, on this side of the island, there were many giant beast skeletons. However, these skeletons were very rotten, to the point that they were practically useless. However, after seeing rich death chi in this place, Chen Xiang was very surprised. He faintly suspected that there might be some L spirit GRS here. There! Lu Menger suddenly shouted. Far away, she pointed in the front. Chen Xiang looked and was suddenly shocked. On the water, a group of people suddenly appeared, densely packed together, and were rapidly ing towards the very island they were currently on. Most of them were swimming in the water, and their speed was also very fast. It really was an illusion array. Now that the illusion array had disappeared, they can very easily sense this island. As long as they aren't stupid, they know that there must be something hidden here. Lu Menger looked very serious. She could see the land at the other side from the SHORE of the island. Before, the island and that land was separated and was only accessible through the sage, but now it was visible. Sister Menger, cover up your face, don't let them recognize you, Chen Xiang said as he quickly shuttled through countless groups of skeletons, rummaging through some of them. Lu Menger took out a black robe and put it on, then she wrapped a black cloth around her head, making it so that only her eyes were revealed. Those people in the water were getting closer and closer, and there were hundreds of them, but Lu Menger didn't find Xue Xiangxian among the group. Those tens of giant beast skeletons were all rummaged through by Chen Xiang. However, Chen Xiang didn't find the L spirit GRS. He also didn't see any monster Dan. Looking at those people slowly approaching and was about to reach the SHORE. Lu Menger said in a heavy tone, Chen Xiang, how about we avoid them? At this point, Chen Xiang saw a human-sized small mound. He felt something was there, so he fiercely blasted a palm facing the mound. The mound suddenly burst open as a green aura suddenly broke out. Tens of coconut-sized green light ball fell out. Seeing these things, Chen Xiang and Lu Menger were extremely shocked. At the same time, they could feel an abundant life force emanating out of these light BALL. Surprisingly, these were Monster Dawn, and they were also huge. Those people madly swimming in the water had also seen these things, so they could also feel the energy emitted by these light BALL. Although it was harder for them to believe that these were all Monster Dawn, now was not the time to doubt. These were also treasures. Those people shouted in madness, so Chen Xiang immediately released his divine sense and entirely stored those 50 Monster Dawn into his storage pouch. It is Chen Xiang, that guy is Chen Xiang. All those Monster Dawn have been pocketed by him. One guy growled. His voice was filled with jealousy and anger. Chen Xiang didn't pay any attention to these people, but he lowered his head and looked at the blasted open mound. He quickly found the very thing he was looking in some to be here. It was a wash basin size of blackish spirit GRS. Chen Xiang crouched down, while both his hands were trembling as he carried that big and thick spirit GRAS in his hands and muttered, "It really is the HEL spirit GRAS. All the energy from these beast skeletons had been absorbed by this spirit GRAS. One more to come. Chapter 174 Destroy. Chapter 174 Destroy. Lu Menger had totally not expected the HEL spirit GRAS to be inside the mound and it to be so huge. She looked at those people desperately swimming in the water and shouted, "Chen Xiang, walk quickly!" Those people who were coming from afar had encountered many demon beasts along the way, killing a path forward. They had arrived here in order to find the black tortoise adamantal armor, but they were helpless when trying to use their true chi. In addition to all of this, there was someone else right in front of them, seizing dozens of huge monster dawn and a giant HEL spirit GRAS. It's a HEL spirit GRAS. Quickly put it down, Chen Xiang, or else I'll take your life. A man threatened in a ferocious voice with an extremely envious look. They believed Chen Xiang was unable to use true chi, and thus was very weak. Not to mention there was so many of them. Chen Xiang stored that HEL spirit GRAS, turned around and happily laughed at the crowd. He replied, "Why should I put it down? I was the first one to get here and take it, therefore it's mine." These people couldn't understand how Chen Xiang was so quick to arrive here. However, just too many people came in the mysterious realm, and they just couldn't control who was coming in. At this moment, everyone only had those dozens of monster dawn and the HEL spirit GRAS in their minds. Although Chen Xiang was the first one to obtain all of this, it didn't matter for any of them, they all wanted to rob it. As they were unable to use true chi within this mysterious realm, it was very difficult to tell who was weak and who was strong. Chen Xiang glanced at those 300 to 400 people. He found that most of them were sect's disciples, and the majority of them were in the true martial realm. There were even a few who had entered the 3 extreme great realms. However, they were all unable to mobilize their true chi and had almost similar physical strength. That large group of people had already arrived at the SHOR and were panting for air. At this time, Lu Menger took out a golden plate. On the plate, 4 words were engraved, "Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire." She coldly said, "Disciples of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, all of you go back." Looking at the token, 20 to 30 people jumped back into the water, one after another. They were very clear what would happen if they violated that order. They also knew whoever held such a token definitely didn't have a low status. Surprisingly, amidst these disciples, there were also many from the extreme martial sect. Chen Xiang coldly said, "Disciples of the extreme martial sect, are you also planning to rob me of my things?" Chen Xiang was also a disciple of the extreme Dan King courtyard. Besides, he was also a level 4 alchemist and had entered the true martial realm at such a young age. They could very well imagine his position in the extreme martial sect. 20 to 30 disciples from the extreme martial sect receded to one side one by one. However, there was still a small part of the extreme martial sect disciples who chose to remain. "Sister Menger, you chase those disciples of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire. Go take a look to see whether Shui Xianxian has come." Chen Xiang was extremely worried in his heart. Lu Menger was also equally worried. However, regardless of her worry, she couldn't just leave Chen Xiang. "No way. How are you going to handle them alone?" Lu Menger replied back with her divine sense. "Quickly leave, I'm worried about Xianxian. I can use my true chi. Not even you are my opponent right now." Chen Xiang firmly spoke. Lu Menger frowned, her elegant eyebrows scrunching together. Chen Xiang was now possessed the black tortoise adamantal armor and the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade. Moreover, he could also use true chi. She truly had nothing to worry about. If Chen Xiang was unable to defeat these people, he could still fly away. Only after Chen Xiang had urged her several times, did Lu Menjie run to the shore and took out the very small boat with which they had come here with. Don't let that woman leave. A man took out a broadsword and rushed towards Lu Menjie. However, he had taken no more than a few steps before Chen Xiang suddenly appeared in front of that man. Facing the man, Chen Xiang fiercely rammed a fist onto that man's chest. Chen Xiang had now mobilized his universal true qi. This kind of true qi was colorless and invisible, and yet it was extremely overbearing, carrying a very destructive power. Just a single punch had blasted that man into smithereens. No one else had their true qi defense. Facing this level of Chen Xiang's punch, none of them had the capability to resist it. Remember to look for me, Lu Menjie softly said, before she quickly started rowing the small boat. At this time, Chen Xiang quietly used his divine sense and water-attributed true qi to create a force in the water, propelling Lu Menjie's small boat. In the blink of an eye, it caught up with those disciples from the divine weapon Heavenly Empire. Chen Xiang, you just killed a level 5 true martial realm martial artist from my true martial sect. An old man furiously roared. What about it? Whoever want to attack my friend will have to face me. Chen Xiang sneered and said, if you don't want to die, head back now. Anyone thinking of seizing my things will be eradicated regardless of ident. 1. Tai no exceptions. Looking at Chen Xiang blasting a martial artist of 5th level of the true martial realm into smithereens with just a fist, everyone could clearly see how strong Chen Xiang was. Some of these people had already receded, and they returned back into the water. All of them had started swimming back. Now, there were not even 100 people left on the shore, including 30 or so people wearing robes, which were extremely familiar to Chen Xiang. Members of Free Immortal Sea. Chen Xiang was slightly surprised. The fact that these people could arrive here confirmed that they were certainly not weak. There were 30 Free Immortal Sea disciples in the true martial realm. It seemed their overall strength was also rather not bad. Even the other sects only had a few disciples who were able to come here. The true qi of the disciples of the true martial sect was strangely pure. It was easy to tell them apart. Meanwhile, the true qi of the disciples of the beast martial sect had the darkest and evilest qi. This was related to the martial exercise that they were cultivating. As such, it was also very easy to tell the difference from the crowd. Beside the 30 disciples of the Free Immortal Sea, there were also the disciples from the true martial sect and the beast martial sect in here. This was because all of these sects had listed Chen Xiang as a wanted person, which was also the reason why they hated Chen Xiang so much. They very much wished to kill Chen Xiang and get the reward while they're at it. You all want to rob my things? Chen Xiang asked with a sneer. We had already seen you got something, and we all want a share of it. You should hurry up and give it to us. A middle-aged man said. He was a member of the Free Immortal Sea. You have only looked at my SHI+T, and you still want a little taste of it? Chen Xiang said dismissively. After hearing this statement, many people could not help but laugh. Presumptuous brat, today we will let you see how formidable our Free Immortal Sea is. That middle-aged suddenly became furious. While wielding a sharp blade, he pounced towards Chen Xiang, only to see Chen Xiang sidestep and dodge the attack. At this time, many other Free Immortal Sea's disciples rushed over. When other people saw it, none of them wanted the other people to nab Chen Xiang's things first, so they simultaneously came out and fight. Chen Xiang suddenly angrily roared, and everyone saw an oppressive true qi suddenly exploded out from him. This true qi was very powerful and was constantly getting stronger and stronger by the minute. Forming an extremely oppressive pressure, one by one, the entire crowd halted their footsteps as horrified expressions appeared on their faces. Chen Xiang could actually use his true qi, and it was also so powerful. Chen Xiang's eyes were very red. With a very grim look, he mobilized the universal true qi, and his slaughtering heart followed his emotions, filling this true qi with a murderous aura. This kind of slaughter qi covered the entire island and made it very difficult to breathe for everyone. The people in the water could not help but reveal a horrified expression. They were far away, however, they could still sense the true qi emanating from Chen Xiang. Since none of them could use their true qi, they were the same as ants in front of Chen Xiang. Ha ha! Didn't you want to kill me? Come. Come. Chen Xiang laughed fiercely. His whole face was fully ferocious. His crimson eyes were glittering with murderous intention. It made him look very frightening. Those 100 people in the crowd were simply unable to move. Chen Xiang released his true qi, which was the same as a mountain pressing on their body. Some of them had already started vomiting blood from their internal injuries. Of course, everyone was very much afraid. They could all feel the strength Chen Xiang possessed. Just a casual look from him had rendered all of them immobile. Chen Xiang, if you kill us, the beast martial sect will definitely hunt you down till the world's end. A young man spoke, then immediately vomited blood. He knelt down with a complete look of shock. You just destroyed my Dantian. 300 years of cultivation all gone. Chen Xiang, I'll kill you. He had yet to finish his sentence before he vomited yet another mouthful of blood, fainting and falling to the ground. One more to come. Chapter 175, Dominating the Mysterious Realm. Chapter 175, Dominating the Mysterious Realm. Chen Xiang, what are you doing? An old man shouted in a quivering voice. It could be said he was merely a fish on the chopping block, begging Chen Xiang for mercy. Just a moment ago, a quite powerful person was crippled just like that. In their hearts, everyone was panic-stricken. Previously, all of these people had rushed Chen Xiang in a threatening manner, wanting to rob him of all his things. However, now they were similar to dead people, their faces full of fear and despair. I will not kill you, but I will just waste you all. I want to let you group of bullies experience bullying today. I will make you feel with your body just how hateful getting bullied feels. Chen Xiang said with a ferocious and frightening grin. A powerful qi suddenly burst out from him as the island shook. Those 100 people, each and every one of them, simultaneously uttered blood-curdling screams. In the end, everyone cried in despair and rolled on the ground, vomiting blood. All of them felt extreme fear, anger and despair at the same time. However, none of them could do anything. Every single one of them had just been crippled. All the true qi within their body had been mysteriously scattered by Chen Xiang. Not only was their painstakingly lifelong cultivation completely scattered in just a moment, their dantian had also been destroyed. This rendered them unable to cultivate ever again. It was a fate worse than death. Amidst these people, there were a few who had entered the 3 extreme great realms. They were all simultaneously cursing Chen Xiang furiously. Their lives had already been ruined, they had nothing left to fear, death would be a release for some. Chen Xiang, our free immortal sea will not let you off. An old man from the free immortal sea ferociously said. His eyes were filled with ferociousness. Chen Xiang didn't know why, but he felt like his strength was even more powerful inside the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. Surprisingly, he seemed to be able to control the spirit qi in here in any way he wished to. He felt that this strange phenomenon was related to him obtaining the Black Tortoise adamantal armor. Chen Xiang. Originally, the Beast Martial Sect just listed you as wanted to inflict conflict with the Extreme Martial Sect. However, now you are finished. Our Beast Martial Sect will definitely make you our biggest enemy. Just wait. Our Dean will personally hunt you down. A Beast Martial Sect disciple furiously shouted. His voice sounded greatly satisfied. So what? Aren't you just a waste? Whether I kill or cripple you, you will all remain waste. Yet you are still mouthing off. Chen Xiang's words made the crowd's body tremble. Their faces were filled with helplessness, a complete lack of hope. None of them could imagine how they were going to live in the future. Chen Xiang, you better kill all of us. Otherwise, we will head back to the extreme martial sect and inform the dean. You will definitely be severely punished. We are all from the same sect, yet you still used such ruthless means against us. A man resolutely said. Amidst this group of crippled people, there were a few disciples from the extreme martial sect. Chen Xiang obviously knew this, however. He still didn't show any mercy. I had already given you the opportunity to leave. It's too bad you didn't know how precious it was. It's no wonder all of you asked for this. If you were not so greedy, you would not have ended up like this. Chen Xiang coldly retorted. He then released his vermilion bird fire wings and flew towards the opposite Sore. Some people were swimming back. Amidst them, a few were disciples of the true martial sect, the beast martial sect, and the free immortal sea. At this time, they still had lingering fear and were secretly very glad. If they had not chosen to leave a moment ago, they would probably be lying there amongst the crippled disciples. Chen Xiang was very aware of the consequences of crippling that group of people. However, he felt no regret. When that group of people had decided to act against him, no thoughts of any mercy went through his mind. Lu Menger, along with the disciples of the divine weapon Heavenly Empire, had already traveled very far where Chen Xiang was. He flew to the other side of the Sore. However, he didn't see any sign of them. Afterwards, he continued to fly down the river, but he could not understand why all these people would come to this island. He remembered there were tons of demon beasts along this path. Chen Xiang looked down on the land. He found that the landscape was very different from what he had seen before. He also didn't see any sign of those countless amounts of spirit beasts. Suddenly, he noticed a small boat moving very quickly in the huge river. Chen Xiang landed on that small boat. Lu Menger's entire head was wrapped in a black cloth, only her 2 eyes were visible. However, just from the expression in her eyes, it could be seen that she was very worried about something. What happened? Chen Xiang hastily asked. A lot of things had occurred. The 3 OONS of your extreme martial sect are fighting the experts of the true martial sect and the beast martial sect. Their fight broke out in here. After many of the people came inside, they found out they could not use their true qi. Some of them have already left. Xian has not come in. Lu Menger replied. So I can relax. Chen Xiang sighed in relief. I heard that your extreme martial sect's 3 OONS were being suppressed. Also, along the way I also heard that a force called the Free Immortal Sea appeared. Lu Menger said. She was worried about Chen Xiang. She knew that he had definitely not shown any mercy against those people from before, which would undoubtedly further intensify the conflicts between those sects and him. While the extreme martial sect would definitely guard Chen Xiang, and because there were 3 extremely strong martial artists personally taking charge, no one would dare rush in. However, if the 3 OONS of the extreme martial sect fell here, then Chen Xiang's predicament could very well be imagined. Sister Menger, have you heard of the Free Immortal Sea before? Chen Xiang asked. Lu Menger shook her head. Wait, I'll help your extreme martial sect, but I cannot allow my ident. 1. To be found out. Otherwise, it would be detrimental for the divine weapon Heavenly Empire. Chen Xiang shook his head with a laugh. Sister Menger, you can just leave the Black Tortoise mysterious realm right now. Just leave all those troublesome things to me, hey. He knew that as the Empress of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, Lu Menger was in charge of the entire empire. However, the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire's forces were not just hers alone, it belonged to the whole nation. If she offended other forces, it would inevitably hurt her citizens. Thinking about the fact Chen Xiang could now use his true qi, as well as possessing 2 divine weapons, Lu Menjie could not help but be dazed for a moment. In a quivering voice, she asked, "Are you planning to?" However, she didn't finish her sentence. After entering the Black Tortoise mysterious realm, no one else was able to use their true qi. Chen Xiang was the only exception. When comparing his current strength with those Deans, his strength was not far off. After all, those Deans could only rely on their physical strength. These people just perennially cultivated their true qi, and very easily ignored their body in their path of cultivation. Chen Xiang estimated that their external strength would only compare to the 5th or 6th level of the immortal and devil body. He had the Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade, and could also cast the powerful universal true qi from his 5 elements. How could he not be fearless of these type? OONS. Sister Menjie, the overall situation is very important. Besides this our extreme martial sex matter, we can solve it ourselves. Chen Xiang confidently smiled. At this moment, he was completely prepared to make trouble. He could not wait to immediately head over and fight with those Deans. Lu Menjie sighed. "If you have time, come to the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire and find me. This token of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire will give you a lot more convenience when you are in the Divine Heavenly Empire." Chen Xiang took that golden medal from Lu Menjie and then smiled. "At that time, I could not be so intimate with you. Otherwise, Xian will be jealous." Lu Menjie's pretty face was flu's. Plus-ing, with a cold snort, she said, "Quickly leave and help your Dean out." Chen Xiang learned that Gu Dongchen and the others were fighting here in a relatively open SPAC. They had been fighting for a long time while he cheaply gained all the benefit. Seeing Chen Xiang fly away in the sky, Lu Menjie let out a complex sigh. All the things that had transpired with Chen Xiang in this Black Tortoise mysterious realm was very hard to believe, even for her. It felt like it was just a dream. At the same time, an inexplicable feeling of nostalgia arose in her heart. In a mountain ridge far away, the sound of fighting was resounding throughout the area. It was the brittle sound of weapons clash ing with each other, along with the occasional explosions. Chapter 176, Recreating History. Chapter 176, Recreating History. Chen Xiang landed down and quietly climbed on the mountain. The view at the hilltop was a complete barren plain, and on the plain, 10 or so figures were present. With one glance, Chen Xiang was able to identify Gu Dongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming amidst those 10 or so figures, and they were face to face against 9 people. That handsome face of Gu Dongchen was bleary in exhaustion, however, it was still filled with a majestic aura. Elder Dan was wearing a mask on her face. He was unable to see her complexion, while Wu Kaming, that old baldy, also had a weary look. Among the other 9 people, 3 were from the Free Immortal Sea, and the other 6 were deans and elders of the Beast Martial Sect and the True Martial Sect. Chen Xiang had read some books, where he had seen the portraits of the Dean of the True Martial Sect and the Beast Martial Sect. Soon, he was able to identify them. The Dean of the Beast Martial Sect was one very stout fellow. His name was Zhen Jiuxiong. His whole body was hairy. With a big beard, he looked like a gorilla with a pair of dark green eyes, looking very aghast. He was just like a demon beast while clasping a giant twin hammer, glaring at Gu Dongchen's group. The Dean of the True Martial Sect was a middle-aged man with a refined style, named Tang Yichao, wearing a plain white robe and holding a longsword. With his delicate features and very cleanly trimmed hair and beard, it produced a sharp contrast with the Dean of the Beast Martial Sect. At this time, Chen Xiang heard Gu Dongchen speaking. "We have been fighting for so long, are we still going to keep fighting? Bulls. You're tired to death, very soon, you will be lying on the ground, you will lose." That Dean of the Beast Martial Sect, Zhen Jiuxiong, roared. "Humph, you have been taking turns while fighting, The fact that we can sustain ourselves till now is the very proof that you are all wastrels. Elder Dan coldly said, her voice was full of disdain. That refined dean of the true martial sect calmly said, if this continue to go on like this, indeed it will harder to say at what time the fight will be finished. We will just send 3 people from our side and fight with one of you. As long as you win, it will prove that you are indeed stronger than us, and we'll get out of here. Gu Dongchen's complexion turned cold. They were now very tired. If they were going to fight 1 against 3, it would be very difficult to win. Junior sister, junior brother, let's go. We can't manage the black tortoise adamantal armor. Elder Dan and Wu Kaming also supported Gu Dongchen's decision. If they continue to go like before, all 3 of them would fall in this place. Fighting alone with the true martial sect, the beast martial sect and the free immortal sea for so long could already be considered as good. Want to leave? No way. An old man sneered and said, he was from the free immortal sea. Chen Xiang could see now, the free immortal sea with the beast martial sect and the true martial sect had banded together. Gu Dongchen and company were now extremely tired. It would be a good opportunity to eradicate them in one swoop. Tang Yichao and Zhen Jiuxiong also had the same wicked intention. They decided to remove Gu Dongchen and company. With them gone, the extreme martial sect would be similar to a flock of sheep who had lost its shepherd, and it would be a good opportunity to occupy the extreme martial province. Attack! Tang Yichao coldly spoke, and with 2 other elders who were relatively weaker than him, he charged towards Wu Kaming. The 3 individuals from the free immortal sea also simultaneously acted, charging straight at Gu Dongchen. Elder Dan was besieged by Zhen Jiuxiong of the beast martial sect and 2 other people. Soon, they all fell into a melee battle. All of them were martial artists ruling over a region of the Qinwu mainland. However, now they were unable to use their true qi, and they could only rely on their physical strength. However, they were still very powerful. Chen Xiang estimated that all of them at least had strength comparable to the 5th level of the true martial realm. Then next scene was very intense. Gu Dongchen, Wu Kaming and Elder Dan fought alone against 3 people. It was an extremely difficult battle. Wu Kaming suffered 3 heavy punches. Elder Dan's black robe was also torn. Gu Dongchen had also suffered several palm strikes. They could no longer hold on, which made Zhen Jiuxiong and Tang Yichao very excited. Their attacks became even more ruthless and vicious. Each of their attacks were very fatal, striking at the most vulnerable point. Chen Xiang operated the Wutai Qi subduing dragon exercise, converged his breath, in his heart, secretly shouted, at any rate I'm still their martial uncle, and I have to do something to be worthy of being their martial uncle. While speaking, Chen Xiang's figure suddenly disappeared. With his fastest speed, he rushed down from the peak of the mountain and soon arrived in the chaotic battlefield. At this moment, Elder Dan was being besieged by 3 martial artists of the beast martial sect, and it was getting harder for her to resist any longer. Zhen Jiuxiong, with his giant twin hammer, quickly struck at her. Elder Dan dodged that strike, and she was also able to deal with the sword strikes of the other 2. If she made the slightest mistake, she could very well be seriously injured. An elder of the beast martial sect suddenly once again took out a sword. It was unexpectedly a second sword, in a very tricky angle. He thrust it at Elder Dan's chest. When it appeared that it was just about to penetrate Elder Dan's chest, an extremely aggressive true qi arrived. It was very violent and frightening, with a kind of dragon might disdaining the whole world, fully shrouding the battlefield. In that very moment, everyone's gaze were transfixed at Elder Dan's side. They could see a young figure, and this young figure had a giant blade glittering in an azure aura in his hand. Chen Xiang, hold your hand! Zhen Jiuxiong suddenly roared. However, Chen Xiang's blade already mercilessly struck that elder's waist. Accompanied with an outbreak of sharp qi wave, that old man let out a howl, before he was directly cut into 2 by Chen Xiang from the waist. A blade just fell, and Chen Xiang once again raised his blade and struck towards Zhen Jiuxiong. Everyone saw Chen Xiang's complexion was extremely sinister. However, a dark cold slaughter chi was plusing out from his body. The 5 elements true chi within his dantian quickly fused together, transforming into the universe true chi, and poured into the azure dragon's slaughtering devil blade. With a sky-scattering might, he hacked downward. Zhen Jiuxiong fiercely raised his twin hammer, blocking Chen Xiang's madly plusing blade. However, he felt tens of thousands Jin of power slamming down on him. Both his feet sunk into the ground. Also at this moment, Elder Dan suddenly thrusted her sword, penetrating Zhen Jiuxiong's chest. The remaining elder of the beast martial sect approached from the sky, and facing Chen Xiang, he thrusted his sword. "Be careful!" Elder Dan exclaimed. Although Zhen Jiuxiong was stabbed with a sword, he still had abundant strength to spare. He waved his twin hammer towards Elder Dan, mainly preventing her from helping Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang wasn't able to complete his strike at Zhen Jiuxiong, and was stabbed by a sword. However, this sword thrust was unable to penetrate his body. It was blocked by the black tortoise adamantal armor under his skin. A golden light directly broke out from Chen Xiang's left fist. True chi surged into his wrist, transforming into the dragon aura. He punched out, and with dragon aura bursting out one after another, his fist struck on the chest of that elder from the beast martial sect. A thunderous sound suddenly reverberated in the mountain ridge, before a miserable howl from that elder was echoed out as a giant hole appeared on that elder's chest. It was extremely terrifying. Just a fist of Chen Xiang had heavily injured that beast martial sect's elder. Soon, he sidestepped and dodged the incoming giant hammer of Zhen Jiuxiong. As he dodged, he chopped towards another elder, and that elder's head was chopped down. Blood burst out like a fountain from the sky. It sprayed down on Zhen Jiuxiong's body. Chen Xiang had once again killed an elder of the beast martial sect, and both of them were Nirvana realm martial artists. They were extremely strong. Budo in front of Chen Xiang, they were fragile as weeds. Among the 3, 2 had already lost their lives. Chen Xiang retreated to Elder Dan's side, while Zhen Jiuxiong's eyes were very red. Looking at this fallen corpses on the ground, his whole body was trembling in anger. He had a completely furious look as he turned his head and fiercely glared at Chen Xiang. "Chen Xiang, you!" Gu Dongchen and Wu Keiming were both surprised with Chen Xiang's unexpected appearance. Moreover, he was also able to use true chi, and in one breath, he had actually killed 2 elders of the beast martial sect. Both Gu Dongchen and Wu Keiming stopped their respective fights and arrived beside Elder Dan. At this moment, the people of the true martial sect and the free immortal sea were secretly shocked in fear. All of them gathered together, lest Chen Xiang attack. They were unable to understand why Chen Xiang was able to use true chi. Normally, they could slaughter Chen Xiang with just a finger. However, Chen Xiang was now as strong as them. Chen Xiang coldly looked at Zhen Jiuxiong. The slaughter chi emanating out from his body was getting heavier by the minute. It permeated into each and everyone's heart, making it harder for them to breathe. It was also the very first time they felt Chen Xiang was unexpectedly so strong. Chen Xiang clenched the azure dragon's slaughtering devil blade. 10,000 years ago, his teacher, Huang Jitian, had killed the dean of the beast martial sect, and today, he had the opportunity to kill the new dean of the beast martial sect. Chapter 177, The Martial Uncle's Ferocity. Chapter 177, The Martial Uncle's Ferocity. Zhen Jiuxiong, with a hideous countenance, glared at Chen Xiang. Those 2 elders who had just been killed were both top-ranking martial artists of the beast martial sect. However, now, they had been beheaded by a little devil at the true martial realm. It was even more surprising for Gu Dongchen and company. At the most crucial moment, they surprisingly had been rescued by their young martial uncle, and for the very first time, they felt that this young martial uncle was worthy of that status, so they suddenly had a newfound respect for Chen Xiang. "Brat, today I'll definitely kill you." Zhen Jiuxiong, at this very moment, was extremely angry. He quickly brandished his twin hammer towards Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang sneered and said, "You seem to be forgetting the fact that you, in this place, are not my match." Chen Xiang clasped the azure dragon slaughtering devil blade, rushed over and faced Zhen Jiuxiong's attack head-on. The spirit veins in his blade suddenly glittered, and in the next moment, an azure dragon appeared above the blade. As Chen Xiang poured his azure dragon true qi, it let out shocking roars one after another, similar to an angry dragon. What Chen Xiang had just casted was one of the moves of the Dragon Slayer's 7 killing cuts, the Furious Dragon Strike. After casting this move, Chen Xiang would represent someone who was carrying endless anger, and without any reservation, he would endlessly pour the Azure Dragon True Qi in the Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade, constantly releasing power, releasing his own anger. Chen Xiang fiercely raised the Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade and directly slashed downwards. In that very moment, it was followed by a burst of waves of azure lightning, and in between heaven and earth, a billowing thunder also broke out, sounding very dreadful. At this moment, the Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade was carrying thousands upon thousands gene of power, and with a mighty momentum, it swept away all the obstacles in its path. The thunderous sound shocked the whole mysterious realm, and Zhen Jiuxiong's giant twin hammer had already been destroyed by the Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade. That huge blade body swiftly struck the body of Zhen Jiuxiong, drawing out a huge hole on his body as blood violently surged out. It was a scene filled with brutality. Waves of blood-like flour shot out, splas. Hi+ing into a blood mist that gradually filled the air, shocking everyone's mind. Zhen Jiuxiong was dead. A dignified dean of the beast martial sect had actually died in the hands of a feather brat, and had also died in such a miserable way. Everyone had an ashen look, and with an unbelievable expression, they looked at Chen Xiang, who had a dull look on his face. He had just killed a dean, and yet he still had such a calm look, as if nothing special had happened. Tang Yichao, the dean of the true martial sect, was even more ashen. The dean of the beast martial sect was not any weaker than him, and now his fate had come to an end. It can be described as very tragic. Gu Dongchen's complexion was extremely dignified. He now knew why Chen Xiang had been fancied by Huang Jitian. Just this kind of decisive character was enough reason, and regarding this matter, they could not compare with him. If it were them, they would be a lot more hesitant. After all, that was still a dean of a sect. However, Chen Xiang didn't even bat his eye, not even once, as he hacked the other party to death with a blade strike. Chen Xiang coldly glanced at the people from the Free Immortal Sea and the True Martial Sect. His eyes were briming with murderous intention. He had already killed 3 experts of Nirvana Realm, and he would definitely not hesitate to behead the rest of them. Kill the witness. As long what happened here was not leaked, no one would know that he was the one who did it. After all, in this Black Tortoise mysterious realm, they were unable to use their true qi. A dean dying in this place was nothing surprising. The martial artists of the Free Immortal Sea and the True Martial Sect were afraid. Currently, they were unable to use their true qi. Even if their body had an armor or weapon that they could use to protect themselves, it would still be rendered useless while facing Chen Xiang. This slaughtering God with his broadsword made every one of them very fearful, because they knew they had no chance of winning. Chen Xiang, what do you want to do? Wu Keiming hastily asked while looking at Chen Xiang, who was moving straight towards Tang Yichao. One will not remain, Chen Xiang ruthlessly said, and immediately leapt into the air. Chen Xiang, by doing this you have made the extreme martial sect fall into a state beyond redemption. Tang Yichao spoke only till here, while in the sky, a huge golden palm created from vigorous true qi suddenly appeared. It fiercely pressed downwards, and in that moment, Tang Yichao took out a spirit rune. After he pressed the spirit runes, Tang Yichao's figure turned into a red light, retreating towards a direction as he quickly shot away. That giant palm pressed down with terrifying power, filled with endless slaughter chi. With hundreds of thousands Gene of pressure, it thunderously slammed down, covering the martial artists from the free immortal sea and the true martial sect. The whole plain suddenly shook, accompanied with a burst of explosive rumblings. Under that explosion of true chi, a thick layer of ground was scr. Pet out as rocks were broken apart. It was very shocking. In the black tortoise mysterious realm, Chen Xiang was invincible. He suddenly felt his own true chi was somewhat inexhaustible. Just as he had completely consumed his true chi, it would be quickly replenished. The spirit chi of the whole black tortoise mysterious realm would surge into his body like it had a will. The giant palm disappeared. Those 5 Nirvana realm martial artists were all crushed and buried underneath, mixed in with dirt. Their bodies were mutilated so badly that their death was already a certainty. Originally, these martial artists were standing at the peak of the Qinwu mainland. However, now, they were just like plain mortals facing their death. All of them were so fragile. One got away. Chen Xiang gradually landed on the ground, and with a frown, he looked at the direction Tang Yichao disappeared. Gu Dongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming, the trio all sucked down a mouthful of cold air. This was unprecedented in these 10,000 years. In just one day, so many Nirvana realm martial artists had died, and looking at that calm look of Chen Xiang, all 3 of them could not help but secretly be afraid of him. Worthy of that madman's apprentice. This thought suddenly emerged in the heart of the trio. However, when thinking of the mess they had to clean up, they had immediately felt a headache. Hey, Uncle had just saved you before. You guys have seen me and still not going to greet? Chen Xiang mischievously laughed. The slaughter chi emanating from his body from before had already vanished like a gust of wind. Greetings, martial uncle. The trio simultaneously saluted, which made Chen Xiang nod in satisfaction. Let's quickly get out. I already have the black tortoise adamantal armor, Chen Xiang proudly said. Before, all of them had totally not expected that Chen Xiang would be able to get the black tortoise adamantal armor. The trio were once again surprised for a moment, then they suddenly understood why Chen Xiang was able to use true chi. From what they heard from their teacher, as long as one was able to get the black tortoise adamantal armor, one would be like taking a stroll in his lawn in the black tortoise mysterious realm. Young martial uncle, after you go out, you would definitely face no small trouble. In here, you are indeed invincible. However, on the outside, you, in the eyes of these guys, are nothing but an ant. Gu Dongchen said. Chen Xiang laughed and said, Eldest martial nephew, are you telling me that, after I go out, in your eyes, I'm also an ant? Gu Dongchen angrily glared at him. I'm telling you that after you go out, it would be very troublesome for you. It is better to safely stay here. Elder Dan, Dean is right, it would be best for you to stay here and cultivate till you have reached the Nirvana realm. The spirit chi in here is enough for you reach that level. Chen Xiang shook his head and said, If the entrance is closed, then what should I do? Besides, unlike before, the mysterious realm is now without the support of the black tortoise adamantal armor. It's difficult to tell how long it will take before this mysterious realm will vanish and transform into spirit chi, then flow in between heaven and earth. You have to protect me, Chen Xiang said. Both of his hands were behind his back as he walked in the front. Also there is that, if you're unable to protect me, I'll be thrown in the Forbidden Land, but I yet don't wish to stay with teacher for so many years. I have killed these people for the sake of saving you. Moreover, they had the intention to kill you. Gu Dongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming had an you look at me and I look at you stare at Chen Xiang. With this kind of stare, they could not help but sigh. They now also had no way to handle this young martial uncle. Before, Chen Xiang had indeed saved them, and if Chen Xiang had not appeared, they would have probably been killed. Chen Xiang picked up the storage ring from those blood and flesh scr. P.S. Then he threw it to the trio as he laughed and said, I don't want it, consider it as a reward from me. I know you will have to work hard for quite a while. Inside the storage ring, there were crystal stones and some dawn. However, they didn't have anything Chen Xiang fancied, and he might as well play generous and reward his own martial nephews and niece. Chapter 178 Betrayal. Chapter 178 Betrayal. Chen Xiang followed behind Gu Dongchen's group and ran along the large river. Along the way, the trio also learned that Chen Xiang had crippled more than 100 true martial realm disciples, and some of them were even from the extreme martial sect. Despite this, they weren't able to say anything. He even dared to kill the dean of the true martial sect and the beast martial sect. What was crippling a few true martial realm disciples? What is the background of the free immortal sea? It seems they are very formidable. Chen Xiang asked. They are very formidable. They were overseas for a very long time. Rumor has it they have a lot of Nirvana realm martial artists. However, our extreme martial sect has been standing on the apex of the Qinwu mainland for a very long time. We aren't vegetarians. Gu Dongchen replied. The extreme martial sect was truly powerful. Currently, Chen Xiang had yet to see its full strength. He knew that there were definitely many martial artists hidden in the extreme martial sect on the same level of Gu Dongchen. Since each generation, not many martial artists from the extreme martial sect were able to ascend to the heavenly realms. In other words, there were a lot of elders from past generations that have been hiding in the extreme martial sect. This was their most frightening and terrifying aspect. This mysterious realm appears to be man-made. After the black tortoise adamantal armor was removed, it started becoming unstable. Elder Dan said, while looking at the spirit chi surging in the sky. Chen Xiang nodded his head. That's why we have to quickly leave. If it wasn't for this, Chen Xiang would still wish to stay here. Before, when he had arrived here, he had heard a strange beast's roar. He had still not seen that ancient giant beast. That desolate roar filled with vicissitudes of life still had not left his mind. It seems that roar didn't come from this mysterious realm, and was instead transmitted from somewhere else to this mysterious realm. Long Shui said. Her divine sense was relatively a stronger, and strangely, she was somehow even more sensitive than Nirvana realm martial artists. Chen Xiang asked, what was that demon beast? Long Shui thought for a moment, replied, I too don't know, there's nothing like that in my hereditary memories. Chen Xiang followed the trio back through the original way they came from. At this moment, he was thinking about future plans. He just had gotten bunch of spirit herbs. Naturally he should first start learning to refine Dawn and elevate his strength. As for the revenge from the true martial sect and the beast martial sect, it didn't even cross his mind at all. With just a little disguise, no one would even recognize him. As long as he was a little careful, nothing would happen. If they seeked him out, then he would have Gu Dongchen and others block them. If that didn't work, at most, he could have to spend some time with his insane teacher and wait for the rumors to die down. Then, he would once again come out, although those days might be a little bitter. Little alchemistress, didn't you say before that as long as I defeat you, you'll marry me? Let's have a fight now. Chen Xiang suddenly spoke. His face was briming with a wide smile. Elder Dan's charming body suddenly jolted. She coldly said, It doesn't count in this case. I knew you would lie, but I seem to remember you saying that I can challenge you anywhere. Chen Xiang pursed his lips and contemptuously said. Elder Dan no longer spoke, she could only respond with silence. If she and Chen Xiang fought here, she would suffer an instant loss. Little featherhead, don't you have any woman? Or are you nestling? Ha ha! Chen Xiang laughed. Gu Dongchen was extremely unhappy in his heart, only that insane old man would dare to call him that. However, he could not say anything. Young martial uncle, could you be a little serious? You have to act according to your seniority, you need to keep a positive image. Gu Dongchen said. Chen Xiang scratched his ear, once again mischievously laughing and said, You should be aware of the matter between me and Shui Xianxian. She is my wife. When you see her, what are you going to call her? Young martial uncle, your ident. 1. Tai is extraordinary. Your ident. 1. Tai cannot be revealed, even to your own wife. Elder Dan said in a cold voice. If the matter of Chen Xiang getting the Huang Jitian's inheritance was leaked, it would cause no small amount of trouble for the extreme martial sect. Chen Xiang stuck his tongue out. With both his hands behind his back, he leisurely continued walking. Soon, they had arrived at the end of the river. Next to the river, there was a huge round entrance exuding white light. This was the entrance of the mysterious realm, which was also known as the edge of the mysterious realm. Stick with us. Once we are outside, you will face immense danger. Gu Dongchen seriously said. Previously they had taken many dawn for recovering their physical strength. They all knew after they went out, inevitably a big battle would occur, and it was most important to protect Chen Xiang. After Paas. Sing through the Paas. Sage, Chen Xiang only saw a land filled with messy stones in front of him. He already knew that after the Paas Sage was opened, Black Tortoise Mountain would be destroyed. The flow of time inside the Black Tortoise mysterious realm and outside was different. Chen Xiang had almost spent 2 months inside here, however, only 20 days had Paas set outside. Soon, Chen Xiang saw Tang Yichao, the dean of the true martial sect. At this moment, he looked very angry, and was glaring at Chen Xiang. Beside him, there were a good number of old men. From all of their bodies, a very powerful true qi breath was emanating. They were all in the nirvana realm. This made Chen Xiang suddenly feel a lot of pressure. Many bystanders escaped far away. They didn't know what had happened inside the mysterious realm, but looking at Chen Xiang following behind Gu Dongchen, they all knew Chen Xiang must have done something to once again anger the true martial sect. Tang Yichao would certainly not reveal what had occurred inside. Many people had colluded to bully a few others, and were close to killing them, but instead, Chen Xiang had suddenly jumped out, killing the entire enemy group and completely routing them. Tang Yichao was the only one to escape, but this was nothing glorious. He also knew Chen Xiang and others would also not reveal this. This is the site of the extreme martial province. I have already said, we do not welcome you, quickly leave. Gu Dongchen's voice was thunderous like the sound of ringing bells, as he glared at Tang Yichao and others. Wu Kaming waved his hand and called some people. These were all elders from the elder courtyard. They would rarely show up, however. They were all very strong. Protect Chen Xiang and leave. Gu Dongchen said to these elders. Just a moment ago, he had glanced all around them. There were only a few powerful martial artists in front of them who would give them a little challenge. He, Wu Kaming and Elder Dan were enough to deal with them. Under the protection of a good few elders, Chen Xiang left that place full of tension. As Gu Dongchen and other two were here, Tang Yichao's group had no way to leave and chase Chen Xiang down. As long as they made a move, a great battle would erupt. Chen Xiang had killed 2 Nirvana Realm martial artists of the true martial sect. Tang Yichao could absolutely not just forget it. Chase them, you must definitely kill Chen Xiang. Tang Yichao loudly shouted. A few silhouettes jumped out from the faraway forest, and rushed towards Chen Xiang's group. Those few elders seeing this were shocked in their heart. At that moment, a tall and thin old man took out a square slate. This slate was very large, it was more than enough to carry a good amount of people. You block them, I'll take Chen Xiang and escape. That tall thin old man hastily said. He grabbed Chen Xiang, and manipulated that square slate, making that slate quickly dart out. This slate flying speed was very fast. Chen Xiang reckoned this was definitely a ranked spirit weapon. Unexpectedly, it was so effective that in just the blink of an eye, they were very far away from the Black Tortoise Mountain. Elder, this thing is good. How did you come by it? Chen Xiang asked, as he glanced at that tall and thin old man. Chen Xiang didn't know this elder, however. He knew the majority of the elders in the extreme martial sect were good and were all very powerful. It was a gift. That tall, thin old man laughed. At this time, Chen Xiang looked at his surroundings. With a frown he said, "This does not seem to be the way to the extreme martial sect." Just as finished speaking, that tall, thin old man blasted a palm at Chen Xiang's dantian. A powerful palm fiercely bombarded on Chen Xiang's dantian, glutting his limbs and numerous bones. He became unable to move from the pain. It seemed as if his 5 zhang and 6 fu were breaking apart. With a horrified complexion, he turned to look at that tall, thin old man. Blood overflowed from Chen Xiang's mouth. Enduring his pain, he asked, "Why?" Chapter 0179 The Netherworld Abyss. Chapter 0179 The Netherworld Abyss. Chen Xiang's wrist had already been deadly clutched by that tall and thin old man. Chen Xiang was seriously injured, so he was unable to mobilize his true qi. His body was suffering from serious trauma. On that flying magic equipment, he had no way to cast the water escape and escape. "Brat, if you don't want to die, then quickly pay out all the good things you have. I at most will just cripple you, I don't wish to kill you," that tall and thin man said with a happy smile and a sinister expression on his face. Chen Xiang had not expected that the elder of the extreme martial sect to actually use such ruthless means against him. It must be known that this elder had acquired the trust of Gu Dongchen and others, and that was also the reason why Chen Xiang was totally unprepared and was successfully attacked. This elder was also very powerful. With just a smack of his palm, he had almost lost his life. The flying spirit equipment of this tall, thin old man was very fast, and they have arrived at the place where just talking about it would make people lose their countenance. They were now floating directly above 1,000 zhang wide, infinitely extending, deep and bottomless canyon. This was a very well-known location very close to the Black Tortoise Mountain, known as the Netherworld Abyss. Body knew what was at the bottom. It also had the divided line from the true martial sect. It was said that Huang Jitian had once went down, however. He came out after some 10 days, because he was not able to endure the yin qi at the bottom. After he came out, he spent a very long time to heal his injuries. It was perfectly evident how frightening below was. "Brat, if you do not give me, I'll throw you down." That tall and thin old man, vigorously clutching Chen Xiang's wrist, once again smacked a palm at Chen Xiang. "Are you not afraid if the extreme martial sect came to know? If I gave them to you, you would most likely kill me to silence me, right?" Chen Xiang spat and coldly said. He now had nowhere to run. They were now floating in the middle of that canyon and unable to fly. The only way for him to escape was to jump down. "Ha ha! Since you are like this, I'll let you know before you die. My surname is Lu. Now you know why. This is what you brought upon yourself." That tall and thin old man madly laughed and subsequently smacked palms at Chen Xiang's abdomen, blasting him away. Chen Xiang didn't utter a cry. With pair of resentful eyes, he just looked at that tall, thin old man. He was unable to move and quickly fell into that abyss. He only heard the mad laughter of that tall and thin old man coming from above. 10,000 years ago, Chenwu Mainland's strongest martial artist didn't have any way to withstand this place. Others certainly didn't have even more chance to survive here. This was also a good place to murder someone mysteriously. If killed somewhere else, his soul would be released into the atmosphere, and it would be possible to summon the soul using some spirit runes. At that time, he would be discovered and certainly be killed. However, nothing could be done here near this netherworld abyss, after he had died directly below. Early on, when Chen Xiang had left the extreme martial sect, this elder Lu had sent people to Sinate Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang had not expected that elder Lu could actually be regarded highly by Gu Dongchen and the other two. Otherwise, he would not be harmed even the slightest and would have not been plotted against. Only after seeing Chen Xiang's figure disappear in that endless huge abyss did elder Lu flew away. After Chen Xiang fell below, he only felt freezing cold, and at this time, an aura flashed from his arm, a fair and clear girl appeared. Long Shui directly tugged his arm, she was having difficulty pulling him. This is somewhat annoying, the suction force from below is too great. Chen Xiang was unable to move any part of his body. He already knew that the little greedy dragoness would save him, so he smiled and said, "You just pull me like this, just don't let me fall and smash on the ground." In Chen Xiang's hand, L Spirit Gra S suddenly appeared. Long Shui took it from his hand and looked at it while licking her lips. She could not wait to take a bite, she very much wanted to try the flavor of this L Spirit Gra S. However, she knew that she have to feed it to Chen Xiang so that he could be healed. Only after licking it with her tongue did she stuff it into Chen Xiang's mouth, and with a look of envy she gazed at Chen Xiang as he started chewing that L Spirit Gra S. Long Shui fiercely swallowed her saliva, licked her small lips and asked, "Is it tasty?" Chen Xiang laughed, "Little girl, as long as I'm not dead, if I have the opportunity, you will be able to eat more tasty things. Don't forget I have the dragon's saliva exercise." "I know, it just that I cannot bear it." Long Shui pulled Chen Xiang's arm, and the speed of their descent gradually decreased. If not for that great suction force from below, even 10 Chen Xiangs would not be a problem. If she had appeared earlier, Elder Lu would have seen her, and Long Shui would also be attacked. Although she was a dragon, she was still too young, and she simply cannot deal with that Elder Lu. That was why she could only wait for Elder Lu to leave, and only then did she dare to come out. In fact, by relying on her strength, she could just walk away and totally ignore Chen Xiang. However, she still decided to stay, pulling Chen Xiang, making his fall slow down. Chen Xiang was quite moved by this. Below, there was indeed a dense yin qi. Waves of cold qi struck at him one after another, making Chen Xiang howl and tremble. "Sister Meiyao, Sister Yuyu, have you heard about this place?" Chen Xiang asked. "I have heard about it, it is a very frightening place, I just know a little about it, that's all." Su Meiyao replied, her voice was full of worry. Bai Yuyu replied, "I once thought that this place was very good for my cultivation. I came here for some time, however, in the end, I was also not able to endure." Chen Xiang only felt that the yin qi was getting heavier and heavier as he descended. If it continued like this, he would certainly die. His mother's P.U.S.S. Father have yin and yang divine vein, it's just a little yin qi, how can I not endure? Chen Xiang proudly said. He quickly operated the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise, absorbing those yin qi which had seeped into his body. At the beginning he really was not able to absorb the yin qi, he could only convert it to true qi, and then once again, through the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise, he had refined it into 5 elements true qi. He was only able to do this at the beginning, however, after a little more than 2 hours past. He suddenly discovered he was absorbing the yin qi more and more, and his refining speed was having a very hard time to keep up with it. Without any choice left, he had to exercise these yin qi out of his body. The yin qi was getting denser and denser as he kept on descending. Chen Xiang had finally understood why so many people after going down weren't able to endure. The yin qi below, in a steady stream, was constantly ing like it was coming from the underworld. Chen Xiang's complexion was getting paler and paler, his whole body was veering from coldness. In the end, even his teacher, Huang Jitian, wasn't able to stay here. He himself didn't have the confidence to do so, and now he could not also go up. He could only depend on Long Xue's strength to gradually descend. Long Xue from the start had been cultivating H+2 for her. These yin qi didn't have any effect whatsoever, but as of this moment, Chen Xiang was also secretly worried that down below, there might be some danger she would not be able to cope. Right, Don't you have the black tortoise adamantal armor? Try to see whether or not it could block the yin qi. Su Meiyao suddenly spoke, listening to her. Chen Xiang's mind suddenly jolted. With a thought, a golden light flashed, and an armor suddenly appeared on his body, wrapping him whole. Although his head was still exposed, Chen Xiang, at this time, most of the yin qi that was permeating into his body was blocked, making him feel a lot better. The yin qi coming was still a lot, however. This yin qi was accompanied by a large amount of yin spirit qi, and by virtue of the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise, he was able to refine it. He was able to convert it into pure true qi, and once again, by the help of the 5 elements beast forms, he was able to convert it into 5 elements true qi and store it in his dantian. During his fall, Chen Xiang was healing, and at the same time, he was cultivating. He originally had yin and yang divine vein, and by their virtue, he was able to absorb a large amount of spirit qi within these yin qi, quickly refining it afterwards. Unknowingly, inside the azure dragon beast form in his dantian, a true element grain was once again illuminated, and a total of 4 grains in the azure dragon beast form had already been illuminated. Once he had illuminated 10 grains, he could start cultivating other beast forms. These 5 divine beast forms had a total of 50 dimly lit true element grains, so he could only enter the 2nd level of the true martial realm. However, at this time, he could still have an even more vigorous true qi. Long Shui was pulling Chen Xiang, making him descend slowly. Although it seems very laborious, she was very leisurely eating dawn and some fruit. When she decided to follow Chen Xiang, they had established a contract, and also for this very reason, she fancied Chen Xiang. She also knew that a martial artist cultivating the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise would definitely have a promising future. Chapter 0180, The Mysterious Beast Roar. Chapter 0180, The Mysterious Beast Roar. Lu Shang, is it true? He fell into the netherworld abyss? Gu Dongchen's complexion turned ashen, Elder Dan's and Wu Keiming's whole body quivered. I'll go and take a look, maybe. Elder Dan just turned around, however. She had been stopped by Gu Dongchen. Don't go, we can only depend on his good luck. Gu Dongchen heaved a long sigh, his face fully covered in sadness. Wu Keiming looked at the blue sky and sighed in emotion. Although Chen Xiang had encountered a lot of trouble, he was still able to kill a few Nirvana realm martial artists. However, he did so in order to save them. Besides, he had also obtained the black tortoise adamantal armor, completing the long-standing mission of the extreme martial sect. Not to mention that he was also their martial uncle. However, now he had encountered such a crisis, which made all 3 of them very sad. I was entangled with a few black-robed people. These black-robed people were very strong, so I was not able to pay attention to Chen Xiang. He at least pulled 2 black-robed men with him together and fell down. Lu Shang lamented. He was precisely that Elder Lu, a highly respected person from the Lu family of the Herb King Mountain. At this moment, he was secretly shocked. He could see Chen Xiang was very important in the eyes for these 3 Tai OONs. In particular was Elder Dan. Usually, a lot of people would think that Elder Dan hated Chen Xiang to death. However, Elder Dan's mood was very low now, and from her voice it was evidently clear. Not to mention Chen Xiang with his level of strength, even if it was them, after these Nirvana realm martial artists fell into that netherworld abyss, it would be very difficult to survive, unless they came out without any delay. If Chen Xiang quickly recovered from his injury and immediately used his vermilion bird fire wings to fly out, perhaps he may be able to come out. However, now that he had already fallen very deeply, the suction force was already very big. Even if he used the vermilion bird fire wing, it would still be difficult to fly up because he was being sucked down little by little. The black tortoise mysterious realm had slowly dissipated, and the spirit chi flowed towards the whole extreme martial province, making the spirit chi of the extreme martial province become even more abundant. At this moment, the extreme martial sect also sent some people at the border of the extreme martial province to take charge, lest other sects' people to came over. The true martial sect and beast martial sect suffered heavy losses, not to mention the deaths of a bunch of true martial realm disciples. Most importantly, Nirvana realm martial artists and a dean had died in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. Only a few knew about this truth. The dean of the true martial sect, Tang Yichao, only told the beast martial sect that their dean died in battle. This made the beast martial sect even more hostile towards the extreme martial sect. This caused quite an uproar. 10,000 years ago, the extreme martial sect had killed the dean of the beast martial sect, and after 10,000 years, the same feat had been done once again. However, many people felt that this was what the beast martial sect brought upon themselves. They ran to other people's site and tried to snatch their guarded treasure. It would be even more stranger if they were not killed. Right now, the beast martial sect and the true martial sect only dared to clamor on the surface, nothing more. They practically didn't take any action. Because they had suffered greatly, even if they allied together, it would be extremely difficult to even shake the extreme martial sect. Among the martial arts sects of the Qinwu mainland, the extreme martial sect had the longest history. Many martial artists of the Qinwu mainland originated from there, and many sects' martial arts came from the extreme martial sect's vein. Throughout the Qinwu mainland, ancestors of many martial arts aristocratic families had some kind of relations with the extreme martial sect. Such status could not be compared with other late-formed sections. Originally, the extreme martial sect just wanted to spread martial arts. However, after the rise of many sects, many ambitious sects were also born. They always wanted to plunder the most important resources and always wanted to oppress and exploit the citizens. That was why, without any choices, the Qinwu mainland was separated into 9 provinces, under the control of many forces. Otherwise, it would have not been long before all of them would have started fighting. However, the sudden appearance of the free immortal sea brought a headache to Gu Dongqin's group. Only teacher, that insane guy, dared to stay here for so long. As long as I can leave this place, even in death, I will never come back to this place. Chen Xiang, at this moment, was covered in endless darkness. His aura was overshadowed by black yin qi, but Long Xue's, this little dragoness, whole body was exuding a white light. It appeared to be very holy and beautiful. She was only a little bit older, yet she was already such a beauty. If she had grown up, how stunning would she be? When will we arrive at the bottom? Chen Xiang had a helpless look. At this moment, he can't go up, so he could only take a look below and find some way to leave this Ned place. Fortunately, he had acquired the Black Tortoise adamantal armor before, otherwise, he would have already died. Long Xue replied, "If you could survive your descent, only you can answer this question. I have helped you in getting the Black Tortoise adamantal armor, so you have to remember your promise to me and give me true elemental dawn." Of course Chen Xiang remembered it. He had no shortage of the true elemental dan. He had also acquired a lot of herbs in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. Give him enough time, and he would be able to convert those herbs into dawn. In order to quickly reach the bottom, Chen Xiang made Long Xue release him. Once he had arrived at the bottom, she would once again pull him back. Chen Xiang was certain that this netherworld abyss had a bottom. It was just that the yin qi was too dense, and none was able to go down. However, he happened to have the Black Tortoise adamantal armor, and by its virtue, he was able to survive in such a deep place. Falling so quickly, the rich yin qi was striking on his face. It was very chilly, making Chen Xiang very excited. When Chen Xiang was gradually descending, he had already recovered a better part of his injuries, and he had simultaneously elevated his cultivation, making himself achieve the peak state, the reason why he dared to try. Half a day pass. Said, Chen Xiang suddenly saw that below him was slightly illuminated. This lifted Chen Xiang's spirit. He hastily made Long Shui come out from his arm and pull him. Have we arrived at the bottom? Chen Xiang looked below at those weak and fuzzy aura and said, Little dragoness, did you sense something? Long Shui closed those cute eyes of her, and after a moment said bye. With a delighted look on her face she said, We have arrived, and there is also a very strong life aura below. There is actually a world down there. Chen Xiang, Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu were immediately shocked. In this kind of place there was actually a living thing. In this ghastly place, they reckoned that this life definitely had the power to resist this intense yin qi, otherwise, none could ever survive down here. While Chen Xiang's group was still caught in surprise, an intimidating beast roar suddenly exploded in Chen Xiang's ears. It was just like thunder, and when Chen Xiang's group heard it, they were once again surprised, because this roar was exactly the same as they had heard before in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm. It was desolate and filled with the vicissitudes of life, influencing Chen Xiang's group. They had never expected that a giant beast would be in this netherworld abyss. Did it accidentally fell down and got trapped down here? Chen Xiang said, this demon beast was able to resist the yin qi. If it was not very strong, then it was exactly because it inherently possessed very tough defensive skills. Splash! Chen Xiang fell into the water. A freezing coldness suddenly penetrated down to his bone marrow. If not for the black tortoise adamantal armor covering his body, he would have definitely been frozen to death. You clearly knew there was water down below and you still dropped me. Chen Xiang cursed in a low voice. He jumped and a pair of vermilion bird firewings appeared on his back. However, the flames were quickly being eroded by the yin qi down here. Long Shui skimmed her mouth and said, Nevertheless, let me pull you now. She once again pulled Chen Xiang's arm and brought him to the S8. Surprisingly, there was a river below in this abyss, but there were also many green mists suspending above, exuding light, giving a little illumination to this abyss. Just as he climbed onto the S8. That beast roar came again. Slight waves appeared on the water due to shock. Chapter 181 Ancient Fire Beast. Chapter 181 Ancient Fire Beast. According to Long Shui, there were a lot of life forms here. However, Chen Xiang didn't find any signs of them. He only felt that this was a very strange place. Here there was a kind of bright green mist, as well as the mysterious beastly roar, not to mention the large number of life forms and the river stream. Chen Xiang, after considering for a good while, walked along the river towards one direction. This was the direction from where the beastly roar was coming. He felt that this beastly roar was more akin to crying, as if crying for help. Little girl, you can also be considered as a beast. Can you understand what that demon beast's roar is trying to convey? Chen Xiang asked. Long Shui was bouncing and vivaciously following behind him, and inside her mouth, there were a few good dawn. She looked very adorable. This guy is simply roaring and shouting. It does not convey anything, however, I can ask him. But doing so will expose our whereabouts. Long Shui replied, while munching on those true elemental dawn. Chen Xiang, at this time, let the black tortoise adamantal armor appear on his body, guarding him from the erosion of the yin qi. What made him feel surprised was the fact that the yin qi down below was not so heavy. You ask that guy what is its background. If he is a powerful guy, we should pay attention to that point. Chen Xiang said while touching Long Shui's small head, lightly pinching her headdress which was exuding a white light. Long Shui's whole body was covered in a snow-white dress, fair-skinned, which made Chen Xiang very eager to bite on that cute and beautiful face of her. Little greedy dragoness, after thinking for a while, said, Feed me a true elemental dan, then I will do it. Chen Xiang ruthlessly pinched her face and then threw a true elemental dan in her mouth. Only after Long Shui ate it off in 2 to 3 bites did she slightly open her little mouth. However, she uttered a deafening dragon roar which scared the daylights out of Chen Xiang. Very soon, a thundering roar came from far away. This time, the roar was completely different from before. This roar was carrying a kind of excitement with it. Moreover, it also echoed out a little bit longer. Long Shui wrinkled those cute, small and curvy eyebrows and said, "This guy is the ancient fire beast and is actually trapped in this place. He really have a bad luck." "Ancient fire beast?" Chen Xiang said in both surprise and doubt. He had never heard of this kind of demon beast. Su Meiyao exclaimed, "Is it the strange beast of 5 elements bred out from flames? This is a very powerful demon beast. As soon as it is born, it will have a terrifying strength. For example, if this ancient fire beast casually opened its mouth and spew out flames, it could burn off a mountain range." Immediately after, that ancient fire beast once again roared. Chen Xiang, while walking over that direction, also learned that the ancient fire beast was trapped and he had nothing to fear. Long Shui softly laughed and said, "This guy's luck is very bad. He was actually trapped by a person in here. Only after the Black Tortoise mysterious realm is opened will some of the restrictive spells trapping him would break open, and it can allow him to transmit its roar. And now that the Black Tortoise mysterious realm has dissipated, those restrictive spells don't have any use anymore. It can constantly roar, however. He is trapped in a very small place and cannot come out." Chen Xiang was slightly taken aback. He speculated that the very same person who created the Black Tortoise mysterious realm was the one who trapped this ancient fire beast. However, who in the end was that person? Surprisingly, he was so powerful. Not only did he establish the Black Tortoise mysterious realm and the Heavenly Dragon mysterious realm, but also trapped an ancient fire beast down here. "This guy's is asking you to save him. He said that if you can save him, he will be extremely grateful to you." Long Shui continued speaking. The roar was constantly coming in order to convey the message. Chen Xiang said with a frown, "Save? What if we are eaten off, then what to do?" Long Shui replied, "This guy's divine sense and strength have been sealed, so he could only send message across through the roars. However, if you are close to it, it can use its weak divine sense and communicate with you. This level of demon beast can directly communicate with humans." Chen Xiang nodded his head and ran forward. He also wanted to get a glimpse of this ancient fire beast. 3 hours passed. Chen Xiang was still running down the river, when he suddenly felt that it was not as cold as before, and the beastly roar was also increasingly becoming clear. He saw a huge cave entrance on a cliff just in front, and waves after waves of firelight was plusing out from the cave entrance. "Is this guy very large?" That huge cave on the cliff gave a fright to Chen Xiang. "Very large, at least as large as a small mountain," Long Shui replied. Chen Xiang ran over, looking at the giant cave on the cliff across the river stream. He felt a scorching qi waves surging out from the inside. It was very hard for him to figure out how he could even feel heat in such a heavy yin qi region. This, in itself, was the very proof of how powerful the ancient fire beast was. Long Shui pulled Chen Xiang, floated high in the air, flew over the river stream and entered into that giant cave entrance. Inside the entrance, a fiery red aura was rising, with twists and turns like a snake wriggling. After Chen Xiang entered the cave, he felt an even more scalding temperature. Deity is in the most deepest part. You can come in without any worry. If the deity wanted to hurt you, you would not even be able to walk in here. A powerful sound resounded in Chen Xiang's mind. It sounded as if it had some kingly spirit. Chen Xiang mumbled in his heart, "Deity your head, you had been trapped here and you are still so haughty. I didn't expect a humankind would actually be able to get along with a dragon with imperial blood from the dragon clan." That ancient fire beast once again spoke. Dragon clans. Imperial blood. Chen Xiang turned his head and looked at the cute little girl, only thinking of eating behind him. He had not expected that Long Shui would turn out to be one of the most noble dragon in the dragon clan. Originally, He didn't believe in the existence of a dragon, however. After encountering Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu and learning more about many of the confidential secrets from them personally, he finally had some understanding with regards to these N.O.B.L.I. life forms. And a dragon with imperial blood from the dragon clan were the strongest of the bunch. After Chen Xiang had gone through a few bends, he finally saw the ancient fire beast. It was very huge. Its size was that of a small mountain with an appearance of a lion, whose whole body was burning in red flames, and claws that were so huge that it could easily grasp an arbor. With such a humongous and terrifying body, it appeared very daunting. Black tortoise adamantal armor, you really obtained it. You frail human, how were you even able to obtain it? Not only did you obtain the recognition of the Imperial Dragon family, you have also obtained this powerful divine weapon. The ancient fire beast spoke. At this time, he was laying in a corner, while not far away in front of him, there was a greenish light screen, and he was unable to leave that light screen. Chen Xiang was very unhappy. This ancient fire beast was very arrogant. However, him looking down on humankind was also justified. You don't want me to help you out? Chen Xiang asked in an indifferent tone. He would not be afraid of this imprisoned ancient fire beast. The strength of this little imperial dragoness, as well as yours, is worse than I expected. You will absolutely not be able to save the deity. Ancient fire beast spoke with a cold snort. Chen Xiang smiled. Being unable to save you now does not mean that I won't still be able to save you in the future. It is an undeniable fact that in this world, I'm the only one who is able to come down here. Because I have the black tortoise adamantal armor, you must have stayed here for a long time. If you can let me out of here, wait for me to increase my strength, I will definitely come back to save you. This huge mountain-sized lion suddenly lowered his head, and with a pair of enormous eyes plusing in flames, it looked at Chen Xiang as it spoke in a heavy tone. Show me your ability. If you can make deity see hope in you, deity will make a deal with you. Chapter 182, Heavenly Sun Fire Spirit. Chapter 182, Heavenly Sun Fire Spirit. After considering for a good while at the same time he had discussed with Su Meiyu and Bai Yuyu, Chen Xiang was contemplating if he should expose some of his confidential secrets and let this highly proud giant lion take a look. Do you want to make a business deal with me? I need to take a look whether or not it's worthwhile for me to reveal my confidential secrets to you. Chen Xiang asked. This was what Bai Yuyu suggested. If Chen Xiang could get some benefits from this ancient fire beast, he shouldn't be afraid to reveal a few of his secret. Heavenly Sun Fire Spirit. If you can make this deity see hope in you, I'll grant you the Heavenly Sun Fire Spirit, which will allow your growth rate to be much faster. The ancient fire beast proudly said. Heavenly Sun Fire Spirit. Hearing these 4 words, Long Shui, Bai Yuyu, and Su Meiyao could not help but gasp for a mouthful of air. Fire spirits were already rare. They were also divided into various different levels. Generally, a fire spirit rank was discriminated from its color. It started from red to orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, and finally purple. This way they were divided from low to high, red being the lowest and purple the highest. For instance, Wu Qianqian's blue star fire spirit could be considered a good fire spirit as well as a high-rank one. Meanwhile, Elder Dan's purple moon fire spirit belonged to a higher CLA. SS. However, the Heavenly Sun Fire Spirit has to be even better than these fire spirit. Although this fire spirit's color appeared to be the same as an ordinary red flame, it was also the most primeval flame. It was the flame of myriad things, transcending above the purple moon fire spirit. Generally speaking, all fire spirits were bred inside stars. These types of fire spirits were the most common, and the scorching sun possessed the most powerful presence among these stars. Worth it! Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu simultaneously shouted. Long Shui also clasped her small fists while watching Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang came to learn about the formidability of Heavenly Sun Fire Spirit from Su Meiyao and Bai Yu just a moment ago, which made him extremely excited. He had always wanted to have a fire spirit. With its help, alchemy would become easier. One must know, just relying on the brilliant flame dragon furnace, Chen Xiang was able to refine dawn much faster than others. While Elder Dan, even without this kind of alchemical furnace, was able to refine dawn faster, she mainly had to rely on the strength of her fire spirit to refine dawn faster. Chen Xiang took a long deep breath and relaxed his body. Immediately after, a hazy Tai Chi yin-yang diagram appeared above his head. It was hard to tell if it was real or just illusionary. The Tai Chi yin-yang diagram was guarded by 5 solemn and serene divine beasts. The yin and yang divine vein. This is the Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise? The ancient fire beast's voice was filled with surprise. As he looked at that translucent Tai Chi yin-yang diagram above Chen Xiang's heads, flames fiercely gushed out from those large eyes. At this time, Chen Xiang also took out a giant blade and poured his azure dragon true qi into it. Immediately after, a dazzling azure aura burst out from the blade. A lifelike azure dragon suddenly appeared at the center of the blade, emitting majestic dragon roars one after another. The azure dragon slaughtering devil blade. The ancient fire beast was once again taken aback by surprise. Chen Xiang retracted the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram back into his dantian. When required, he could release it again. He dismissively said, "Is this enough? I also have a contract with this little girl. She will follow me for quite some time." The ancient fire beast suddenly started continuously roaring. It was so loud that Chen Xiang's eardrums started aching. Soon after, the ancient fire beast then broke into insane laughter while muttering, "This deity will very soon be able to go out, ha ha ha." Chen Xiang pursed his lips, sat down, and covered his ears. Long Shui was holding Chen Xiang's leg. With a disgusted expression in her eyes, she looked at that suddenly insane giant lion. She was a dragon carrying imperial blood. Naturally she would not be afraid of such things. However, the sudden insane roar made her feel very disgusted. "Don't shout, you give that heavenly sun fire spirit to Chen Xiang, then we will discuss further." Long Shui tenderly shouted. "Do you know how strong I need to be in order to release you?" Chen Xiang asked. "Around Nirvana 5th tribulation or so should be enough. According to this deity's estimation, in 5,000 years, you should be able to reach that level." The ancient fire beast spoke with excitement. 5,000 years in his eyes was unexpectedly quick. This fact made the corner of Chen Xiang's mouth slightly twitch. Nirvana 9 tribulations. After crossing each tribulation, one's power would increasing in multiple folds. The number of tribulations the individual had crossed was a confidential secret of many Nirvana realm martial artists. For instance, many people didn't know how many Nirvana tribulations all the major deans had crossed. Both Su Meiyao and Bai Yu were also unable to tell. However, Chen Xiang knew the two sisters were definitely more formidable than the deans of the true martial sect and beast martial sect. There was also that great senior brother that Chen Xiang had never met before, the last term's extreme martial sect's dean. After crossing the 9 tribulations, he had ascended to the heavenly realms. Under the circuit stance where one had crossed all 9 Nirvana tribulations, every single one of them would automatically ascend to the heavenly realm, whether they want to or not. Elder Dan and the other Tai OONS of the extreme martial sect, Lu Menger, the Empress of the Divine Weapon Heavenly Empire, were all considered eternal Tai OONS. However, they had still not ascended to the heavenly realms. It was perfectly evident from this just how difficult passing each Nirvana realm tribulation was. "So, do we need to sign a contract or something?" Chen Xiang asked. "It's not required. This deity will inject my own consciousness into the heavenly sun fire spirit when I give it to you. If you don't come back here in 5,000 years, the heavenly sun fire spirit will disappear." This deity believes that you will definitely be fascinated by the heavenly sun fire spirit, although it is not the most powerful fire spirit. The ancient fire beast replied. Chen Xiang could not help but be surprised. If the heavenly sun fire spirit was not the most powerful, then which fire spirit could be considered the strongest? At this time, he saw the ancient fire beast open its jaws as a tiny fireball gradually floated out. It looked like a miniature sun. The fusion with this fire spirit will be very painful. However, this is the most desirable thing by mankind. You have to endure, frail human. As the voice of the ancient fire beast fell, the tiny fireball flew over and disappeared into Chen Xiang's body. Chen Xiang suddenly emitted a fierce roar. He personally saw Wu Qianqian fusing with the blue fire spirit, and that painful scene was still vivid in his mind. However, it was one thing to witness something, and another to personally experience it. At this time, he was rolling and howling on the ground in pain. Chen Xiang felt his body was being tightly squeezed between two red-hot iron sheets. The scorching heat penetrated through his skin and entered his body, raging inside him as if it wanted to eradicate him into ashes. Hold on. Operate the Vermilion Bird Divine Exercise. Su Meiyao hastily shouted. At this time, both she and Bai Yuyu were very tense. If Chen Xiang was able to successfully fuse with the heavenly sun fire spirit, he would undoubtedly become extremely powerful. Regarding the field of alchemy, that did not even need to be mentioned. After Chen Xiang operated the Vermilion Bird Divine Exercise, the scorching hot power madly surged into the Vermilion Bird Beast form inside his dantian. Simultaneously, he also operated the Tai Chi Subduing Dragon Exercise, accelerating the refinement of the power surging into his body, and essentially accelerating the fusion of the heavenly sun fire spirit. 3 days and nights pass. Said, Chen Xiang had been constantly rolling and howling on the ground. His throat was almost worn out from shouting. At this time, his cries became softer and softer, the pain was gradually being reduced. He just felt his entire body from head to toe, including his blood, contained a very powerful and intense hot energy, which would allow him to release powerful flames whenever he wished. These flames were nothing like the vermilion bird flames he previously cultivated, it was exponentially more formidable than before. The heavenly sun fire spirit had already fused into Chen Xiang's body, and fused into his soul. It had already become an inseparable part of his body, and even fused together with the S.H.I. plus into infant soul inside his consciousness. Although he experienced a lifelong unforgettable pain, it allowed him to obtain tremendous benefit. Chen Xiang looked at the vermilion bird beast form, and saw 10 true element grains exuding bright white light to his surprise. He had always been mainly cultivating the true element grains of the azure dragon. He had no expected that the 10 grains from the vermilion bird beast form would be illuminated first. This meant that while he was fusing the heavenly sun fire spirit, he obtained a large amount of fire-attributed true qi, which was all compressed inside the vermilion bird beast form. Chapter 183 Past of the Fire Beast. Chapter 183 Past of the Fire Beast. After Chen Xiang had gone through a torment that made him suffer a fate worse than death, he was able to find a little bit of comfort. At this time, he very much wished to use an inferior alchemical furnace to try refining a set of building foundation dawn and take a look how much benefit did this heavenly sun fire spirit brought him. Of course he was currently more worried about leaving this D.A.M. Ned place. This netherworld abyss was very deep, moreover, there was also a bizarre suction, which made it very difficult for Chen Xiang to use the vermilion bird firewing to fly up. I'm much better now. Within 5,000 years, I should be able to come and help you leave this place. Chen Xiang slightly sucked in a mouthful of air. His face was briming with a happy smile. He had finally obtained the long-wished fire spirit. Big Lion, how will you send us up now? Long Shui asked. The ancient fire beast replied, "This place have a suction force. All of this is because of the hot chi released by deity and the yin chi mixed in together. Now that deity have given you the heavenly sun fire spirit, you will not be again sucked in by this suction force. If you are still unable to leave this place even after this, then it is just because you are too weak." Chen Xiang could obviously leave this place, even without the help of Long Shui now. Just with the vermilion bird firewing, he would be able to fly up, not to mention the newly illuminated 10 true element grains in his vermilion bird beast form. The vermilion bird true chi was now very vigorous. It could already be considered to have the same level as the second level of the true martial realm. Chen Xiang nodded his head. If it is as such, then it will definitely be much easier. The ancient fire beast lowered its head, looked at Chen Xiang and said, "Do you have to go now? Don't you want to know why deity was stuck here?" The ancient fire beast had been trapped here for too long, and now that he saw someone, moreover, also the one who gave him hope, he could not help but want to say something. From its roar, it was pretty clear that it was very sad and lonely. Chen Xiang nodded his head, lying on his back on the ground. With his head I +1'd on a cold stone, looking at the ancient fire beast, he said, "I'm in no hurry to go, I want to hear your story." In fact, he wanted to know who was the one who sealed him here. The ancient fire beast let out an emotional long sigh, then started talking non-stop. It happened a very, very long time ago, that he couldn't remember how long it was anymore. He only knew that at that time, by relying on the heavenly sun fire spirit, he was born, and in order to continue elevating his own strength, he arrived down here, at this deep bottomless crack, in order to find the legendary earth core fire. He found the earth core fire, and had also completely engulfed it. Afterwards, he slept down here. When he woke up, this place had turned into a heavy yin chi zone. Moreover, a human mysteriously appeared, who laid down a lot of restrictive spells, trapping him in here, reasoning out that it was in order to punish him because he had swallowed all the earth core fire. Humph, deity didn't simply swallow all the earth core fire, otherwise who can trap me? Deity, at most, only swallowed the flame seedling released by that earth core fire. The ancient fire beast angrily spoke. Fortunately, there is an earth core divine tree in here, and very soon it will bear fruit. On one side, when Long Shui, who was eating dawn as if she was eating peanuts, heard the words of the ancient fire beast, she suddenly became high-spirited, with both her eyes Ning, she asked, "Where is the fruit?" "What fruit?" Chen Xiang smacked down on her head, laughed and said, "You only know how to eat all day. One day, you will turn into a fat dragon." The ancient fire beast feeded his huge body, and at the corner of one side, a 3-zhang high giant tree with red leaves became visible. On the tree top, 4 round things wrapped in flames could clearly be seen. That was the earth core divine tree. You can only see the very top of the tree, but this tree had grown up after penetrating many layers of the earth, and the earth core fire is still deep down below. Deity has only eaten the earth core fire that followed along with the top of this tree. The ancient fire beast's voice was filled with injustice. This injustice had trapped here for many years, making him extremely furious. Long Shui's beautiful big eyes were glittering like a golden star, gluttonously staring at those few, just about to mature fruits on top of the tree. Her small tongue was licking her lips, and her appearance was as if she had been suffering from hunger for a few months. "Big man, can you share one with me?" Long Shui spoke sweetly and greasily, with a kind of irresistible expression in her eyes, as she stared at that ancient fire beast. "Little dragon, deity's condition today can only be blamed at your imperial dragon's family. Only a guy from your imperial dragon family knew that I came down here looking for the earth core fire. When deity woke up after being sealed, the guy that sealed deity was most probably related to your imperial dragon family." The ancient fire beast moved his and blocked that earth core divine tree. "Really stingy." Long Shui pouted and tenderly snorted, then she tugged Chen Xiang's sleeves, and once again, with that irresistible expression in her eyes, looked at Chen Xiang as she cutely said, "Brother Chen Xiang, I want to eat the fruit, can't?" Chen Xiang pursed his lips, squeezed her face and said, "I don't have any means, unless this big lion give me one." "Deity can give you one, but you have to wait here for some time, because they still have not matured. During this time, you can cultivate in here. You have both Tai Chi subduing dragon exercise, and Yin and Yang divine vein. Cultivating here will be much faster." Long Shui shook Chen Xiang's arm and spoke in a flighty manner, "Brother Chen Xiang, I want to eat." Chen Xiang mischievously laughed, "No way, I have only one, I also want to try, if you want to eat. Hey, you know." He stuck out his tongue, and a little green liquid appeared on his tongue. This was the dragon saliva that could accelerate plant growth. Seeing this, Long Shui nodded in excitement, jumping up and down. Don't expect planting the earth core divine tree. This is not any ordinary plant. It mainly relies on the absorption of earth core fire to grow its fruit. The ancient fire beast disdainfully said, "Big man, you have 4, how about giving me one too? I'll become stronger in the future, and can also help you leave this place. I can promise you, if I find that sinister guy from my clan, I'll help you beat him up." Long Shui said while pouting. Her appearance was very lovely. Ancient fire beast was not a human. No matter how beautiful a woman appeared to be, in his eyes, there was no difference between looking at her and looking at stone. "I won't give." The ancient fire beast closed its eyes, laid down on the ground, and no longer paid any attention to Long Shui. Long Shui, who was facing the ancient fire beast, made a grimaced face, then angrily ate some dawn. Chen Xiang helplessly smiled, sat cross-legged on the ground and swallowed a building foundation dan. He began cultivating. He also wanted to quickly elevate his strength. Compared to those who had entered the Extreme 3 state, his strength was way far off. Surnamed Lu, don't think you won't need to repay the gambling debts this way. I will make you repay me 10-folds, no 100-folds. Chen Xiang secretly said in his heart, as he operated the divine exercise. On one side, he was absorbing the Yin Qi, while on the other, he was refining the building foundation dan, and through this, he could cultivate a large amount of true Qi, compressing it inside those 5 elements beast forms. Amidst his cultivation, Chen Xiang didn't realize the time pass. Sing Bai and Long Shui, this little greedy dragoness, ate fully then slept. After enjoying the sleep, she ate again, and so forth. At this time, her legs were hanging in the air like a turtle lying on the ground on his back, and sleeping. With some saliva left on the corner of her mouth, and a bubble blowing in and out above her nose, it looked very indecent. Chapter 184 Earth Core Divine Fruit. Chapter 184 Earth Core Divine Fruit. Chen Xiang had already eaten 3 building foundation dawn and cultivated for a month or so. Upon seeing Chen Xiang eat those building foundation dawn, Long Shui became very envious and greedy. However, Chen Xiang didn't give her so much as a glance before swallowing them. This made her very jealous. After swallowing 3 building foundation dawn, plus absorbing rich Yin Qi, Chen Xiang's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds. A large amount of true Qi was always surging into his dantian, compressed inside the beast forms. Those tiny true element grains were slowly being illuminated. At this moment, 10 true element grains from his azure dragon beast form had already been illuminated, catching up with the vermilion bird beast form. Afterwards, he began cultivating the black tortoise beast form. The black tortoise divine exercise was mainly for defense. The more vigorous the black tortoise true Qi became, the safer Chen Xiang would be. However, he had already obtained the black tortoise adamantal armor, so his defense was now very powerful. Although Long Shui ate true elemental dawn every day, she was eating with a bowl and looking at the pot. Moreover, she was looking at 2 pots. Chun Xiang's azure profound fruit and the earth core divine fruit of the ancient fire beast. All day she had been thinking about those two pots. This little greedy dragoness was actually very patient. Every day she would pester the ancient fire beast. Once again, another month passed. Chun Xiang had managed to successfully illuminate the 10 true element grains of the black tortoise beast form. In here, the yin qi was much easier to convert to water-attributed true qi, which was also why cultivating the black tortoise true qi was much faster. Every single day, yin qi was being constantly absorbed by Chun Xiang. In Chun Xiang's dantian, 30 true element grains had been illuminated. At this time, the richness of his true qi was far denser than someone from the same level. However, with this peculiar way of cultivation, he was still only at the first level of the true martial realm. Once 10 grains from all 5 divine beast forms were lit, the 5 elements true qi would then perfectly fit together. At that time, it could be considered as Chun Xiang breaking through to the second level of the true martial realm. His true qi quality would be sublime and his strength would increase by several folds. If he casted the universal true qi, then it would be even more frightening. Of course, because he was not like other true martial realm martial artists who congealed 9 beast form from true qi and fused as well as compressed them together, that's why the amount of strength increased would not be same as those ordinary true martial realm martial artists. However, it would definitely be a lot stronger. The first and second levels of the true martial realm were very different. This was because, in order for a martial artist to advance into the second level, they needed to first congeal 9 true qi beast forms, and then fuse and compress them together, turning it into a high-density, high-quality true qi beast form. If the martial artists wanted to again advance into the third level, they would have to once more cultivate those 9 true qi beast forms of the very same high density and high quality, and fuse them together, and so on. This was why each stage would be a lot stronger than the previous ones. Meanwhile, Chun Xiang's way of cultivation was to illuminate the true element grains, so there was no need to fuse them. His cultivation amount was not much different than the others. Last time, when Chun Xiang was besieged by 2 second-level true martial realm martial artists, he had almost lost his life. If not for the Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade, this divine weapon, it would have been very difficult for him to kill them so quickly. Chun Xiang's Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade not only possessed the instant burst of hundreds of thousands genes of power, it could also easily cut through those strong true Qi Hi+Ls. As long as he slashed his blade with all his might, that blow would be very hard to block. This was the most frightening part of this divine weapon. While Chun Xiang was in cultivation and Long Shui was sleeping, a sudden roar woke them both up. Both of them secretly cursed that huge lion. Random roars from time to time was somewhat scary. This deity's earth core divine fruit has matured, ha ha ha. The ancient fire beast started laughing. Long Shui quickly became very excited, however, after thinking about how there was no portion for her. Her cute little face was filled with disappointment and she muttered, "Not going to give them to me for eating, what are you doing waking me up? You must compensate me, give me one." With his mane, the ancient fire beast plucked a fruit and threw it towards Chun Xiang. Upon seeing a ball flying over with flame rising from it, Chun Xiang hurriedly caught the projectile. Surprisingly, the fruit was rather big. Chun Xiang had to use both his hands, otherwise he was unable to hold it. "Good, it's big. Let me have a bite?" Long Shui's saliva fiercely spewed out. With wide open eyes, she stared at the earth core divine fruit Chun Xiang held. "All right, but just a bite. It's only because of this appearance of yours. Don't take me for some generous fellow." Upon seeing this little girl's pitiful appearance, Chun Xiang knew that she had been crazily tortured these past 2 months. She knew there was some very good things, but she was unable to eat it. Long Shui nodded her head like a chicken pecking grains. She only wanted to try its flavor. Chun Xiang sat on the ground and peeled that thick skin off, revealing the red pulp. Its appearance was very similar to that of a tomato. Immediately, Long Shui stretched her little mouth wide open. Moving her head closer, she took a large bite of that teared-up peel. Although she was just a little girl, the speed with which she ate was quite scary. Just as Chen Xiang blinked, this little girl's mouth had already stopped moving. Her little brows were wrinkled, as if she was thinking about something. However, her eyes remained transfixed on that huge earth-core divine fruit. "How does it taste?" Chen Xiang asked with a smile. Long Shui licked her lips and said in a low voice, "Just a moment ago I ate too quickly, I did. Didn't have the chance to try its flavor. Let me have another bite, this fruit is so big, let me have a bite again, there is still a lot left for you." Chen Xiang smiled, squeezed her cheeks, "Well, take another bite." Long Shui was glad. She once again widely opened her mouth, and took a large bite. This time around, she chewed slowly, eating very carefully. However, she eventually still swallowed down into her stomach. "It tastes very good, let me have another bite again." Long Shui spoke in a low voice, she still stared at that earth-core divine fruit. Chen Xiang helplessly shook his head. He took out a long sword, and divided the fruit into two halves. At this time, he saw a fist-sized seed at the center of the fruit. It looked like a gem with an intense flame burning inside it. It looked very beautiful. "Half for each of us, don't ask me for any more." Chen Xiang collected the seed. It left him a chance to plant it in the future. Originally he didn't intend to give so much to Long Shui, however. He had not expected the earth-core divine fruit to be so big, which was why he very generously gave her half. Afterwards, he once again sliced the fruit into few good portions. All of a sudden, there was so much fruit and there was plenty for him to eat, so he also wanted it to give it to Bai Yuyu and Su Meiyao and let both of them try this earth-core divine fruit. Long Shui had not expected Chen Xiang to be so generous, which made her secretly pleased. When she faced Chen Xiang there was a pretty smile on her face. At the same time in her heart she was struggling a lot. She made a very tough decision, and eventually divided her own half into two and gave one half to Chen Xiang. "I'll give it back to you, I don't need that much. I already said I just wanted to taste it," Long Shui said with a sweet smile. However, the expression in her eyes was full of sadness, making her overall appearance look very funny. Chen Xiang had not expected the meat bun he had thrown to a dog to be returned. This little greedy dragoness surprisingly gave half back to him. However, she still wanted to taste it. A quarter of the fruit was still too much for tasting. Humph, wasted deity's good intentions, even gave this little greedy dragon this much. The ancient fire beast said with a cold snort, as he also started eating one. Although there were many fruits, they were still not enough to even stick in between his teeth. Chen Xiang cut that sliced melon-like piece into several small pieces. He wanted to slowly taste and savor it. Inside the ring, Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu also did the same. Chen Xiang's actions showed that he was thinking about them, which also made them feel pleased in their heart. Chen Xiang ate quite a few pieces. He had not expected this earth-core divine fruit bred out from earth-core fire to be so cold and sweet. It tasted great. It let him indulge in pleasures without thinking about anything else. He wanted to eat few more pieces, however. He had to leave some for his friends and for those two martial nephews and martial niece of his. Besides, it might be useful in the future for alchemy. After eating for some time, Chen Xiang felt a hot sensation in his dantian. A bizarre and scalding hot power suddenly writhed in his body, surging into his limbs and bones. Just as it started to make him feel very uncomfortable, the feeling faded away and became very comfortable, as if a warm wind had begun blowing over his body. Chapter 185 5 Elements Profound Dan. Chapter 185 5 Elements Profound Dan. After eating the earth-core divine fruit, Chen Xiang, Bai Yuyu and Su Meiyao could not help but close their eyes and enjoy that warm, comfortable feeling. Only Long Shui ate the earth-core divine fruit in large gulp. She was cultivating Hi+2 so she could not feel the bodily benefits brought by the earth core divine fruit, for her, it only felt tasty. When Chun Xiang opened his eyes, 10 days had already passed. It was totally out of his expectations that such a small piece of earth core divine fruit would actually give such tremendous benefits to his body. It elevated his physical strength by a lot. Sister Meiyao, Sister Yuyu, I had a strange sort of energy in my body. It appeared to be light gold in color. Chen Xiang surprisingly found this scene upon looking inside himself, so he quickly consulted with the two sisters. You have actually entered the second stage of immortal and devil body. This earth core divine fruit is surprisingly very useful for you. This is very good. Su Meiyao spoke with surprise. Bai Yuyu said, we just cultivated for 2 days and completely refined the earth core divine fruit's energy, while you needed 10 days. It is clear that your body is currently very weak. After you completely absorb this earth core divine fruit's energy, the benefits are pretty obvious. This is still a divine fruit, it should have also gave no small benefits for you too, right? Chen Xiang said doubtfully. The earth core divine fruit was a very high-rank herb after all. We ate very little, besides we are unable to completely absorb its energy. If combined with other herbs and refined into a dan, its effect will certainly be very great. This is indeed a divine fruit. With this kind of herb you can refine a divine dan. Su Meiyao's words made Chen Xiang secretly astonished. He still had the earth core divine fruit seed, and he definitely wanted to culture this tree. One must know, Chen Xiang needed to use both his hands to completely embrace this huge fruit, and they had only eaten a small part of it, yet it still brought them tremendous benefits. If he ate some of it again, the combined effect would definitely not be so simple. Chen Xiang was secretly somewhat scared. Meanwhile Long Shui, this little greedy dragoness, had a look of pure satisfaction on her face. It was the first time Chen Xiang had seen her eat something with such an appearance. Young man, this deity will wait for you to come back. Don't disappoint this deity. The ancient fire beast said in a heavy tone. Chen Xiang nodded his head. Then I'll take my leave, I'll definitely come back and save you. With Long Shui, Chen Xiang traced back his steps. The ancient fire beast roared again and again, giving them a unique send-off. However, Long Shui would often look back along the way with a dismayed appearance. She missed the ancient fire beast's earth core divine fruit. Little girl, don't think about it. Sooner or later, I'll grow this tree. Chen Xiang touched her head. I just don't know what month or year this will be possible. Long Shui stuck her tongue out and transformed into a white flash, returning onto his arm. Chen Xiang arrived at the cave entrance and looked at both sides of the abyss. He came to know from the ancient fire beast that there was indeed some life, deep down below in this abyss. It was just that these life forms were at the depth of both ends of the abyss. These life forms were very dangerous. The ancient fire beast exhorted Chen Xiang at least 1,000,000 times to not go anywhere near there. Looking upward at that green mist, Chen Xiang mobilized his true qi as the vermilion bird true qi soared through his body and was released. After the fusion with the heavenly sun fire spirit, the vermilion bird true qi had become even more overbearing. Immediately after, a pair of 10 zhang wide fire wings suddenly appeared on his back. Those intense qi flames were constantly plusing forward, confronting with that yin qi. Chen Xiang was secretly astonished upon seeing that pair of huge vermilion bird fire wings behind him. This was a clear example of the benefits from fusing with the fire spirit. As long as he utilized the flames, it would become several times more powerful. He could also manipulate it as he wished. Those huge wings fluttered as Chen Xiang quickly left the ground and flew straight up, quickly penetrating the numerous layers of yin qi. At this time, dealing with that rich yin qi was simply a piece of cake for him. Of course, if he didn't possess the black tortoise adamantal armor, it would not have been this easy. To reach the top, you still need quite some time. Taking advantage of this, You should take that Dan you obtained in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm," Su Meiyao suddenly said. She had just remembered about this matter. "Chen Xiang gradually soared through the dark abyss," he replied. "What is this Dan?" The last time when he acquired the Azure Dragon slaughtering Devil Blade, he got a Dragon Blood Dan. It allowed him to successfully cultivate his immortal and devil body to first level. Now this Dan accompanying the Black Tortoise adamantal armor should certainly be marvelous. Bai Yu replied, "It's a 5 elements profound Dan, a high-grade earth-level Dan. It contains very rich true qi of 5 elements, and can be quickly refined. It is very precious however, when compared with the Dragon Blood Dan, it is still somewhat lacking." Surprisingly, it was a high-grade earth-level Dan. Chen Xiang sucked down a mouthful of cold air. Although the Dragon Blood Dan he ate last time was formidable, it didn't have an accurate rank A/S sign to it. However, this 5 elements profound Dan had, and its rank gave him quite a shocking surprise. Even the low-grade profound level building foundation Dan was extremely precious, let alone a high-grade earth-level Dan. Chen Xiang took out that 5 elements profound Dan. It was a white Dan with the size of pigeon egg. After looking at it for some time, he swallowed it in one go. Long Shui let out a tender snort in jealousy. After 5 elements profound Dan entered into his body, 5 rich elements of true qi quickly gushed out from the ingested Dan. It was like a large river suddenly began flowing, surging into his limbs and various parts of his body. After running a few cycles, the energy entered into his dantian, while the 5 elements profound Dan kept on releasing the true qi of elements, as if it was endless. On one side, Chen Xiang was flying, while on the other, he exercised his powers and accelerated the refining. A day passed. Said, however, that 5 elements profound Dan was still constantly releasing true qi of 5 elements in a steady stream. He was actually dismayed in his heart by this. If only he had much more of this Dan, wouldn't he be able to vastly elevate his strength in an even shorter time? However, he knew that the herbs for refining this 5 elements profound Dan were definitely very rare. Don't think of refining this Dan. This kind of Dan is rather common only in the heavenly realm. However, you can try refining the 5 elements true elemental Dan. That is a low-grade profound level Dan, however. Its herbs are also too hard to find like the herbs of the building foundation Dan. Su Meiyao replied. Acquiring these herbs caused a headache for Chen Xiang. He had been constantly mulating wealth, precisely for these rare herbs. If he encountered them, he would not hesitate to buy them at any cost. Afterwards, with the help of the dragon saliva, he could grow a large number of these herbs. I also want to eat. Long Shui grumbled. Who would not want to? Chen Xiang himself wanted one more Dan, but he didn't have any. However, at this time, the Dan in this body had still not been digested. Multiple 1. Tudes of true qi was constantly being compressed inside the 5 elements beast forms. Those true elements grains were constantly being illuminated one by one. It was amazingly fast, making Chen Xiang's heart crazily pound. This was precisely the enchantment caused by the high-grade earth-level Dan. He now understood why high-level alchemists were considered n-o-bli existences. This was obviously because high-level Dan could allow martial artists to cultivate many times faster. Holy S-H-I plus T. This speed is too quick. Chen Xiang was extremely excited. At this time, the 5 elements beast form true qi degree inside him was also like him constantly soaring, making him extremely pleased. Ha ha ha! Chen Xiang burst into a wild laughter as he finally broke through the darkness and flew out of the netherworld abyss. At the same time, he had also entered the 2nd level of the true martial realm. With such an easy breakthrough, he could not help but laugh cheerfully. Chapter 186 Turbulent Times. Chapter 186 Turbulent Times. Chen Xiang flapped those huge but very flexible vermilion bird firewings and exited the netherworld abyss. He landed on the ground, enjoying the warmth of sunlight. He had stayed down for 3 months, and the absence of sunlight in that place made him very uncomfortable. Regarding the 5 divine beast forms in his dantian, 15 grains had already been illuminated in each beast forms. These 15 grains were evenly illuminated under his control. At this time, the richness of true qi in all of the 5 beast forms was exactly the same. This made him feel that the difference between his current and previous strength was like heaven and earth. Although he was currently in the 2nd level of the true martial realm, he had confidence that he could challenge a 3rd-level true martial realm martial artist unarmed. "Lu family, look how I fix you up. I'll make you pay with blood." Chen Xiang clenched his fists and madly roared. A tremor suddenly ran through the ground. One after another, cracks spread in all directions. In the forest, the birds that were resting were immediately scared and flew into the air in a panic. One after another, beast roars resounded from the forest. Chen Xiang spread his wings and soared into the clouds. At this time, his vermilion bird firewings size could be changed. If they were bigger, he could fly even more faster and its strength would become even more powerful. Of course, the consumption would also be many times more. Although at this time, he was using the smaller version of vermilion bird firewings, his speed was still 10 times faster compared from before. The aura exuded by the wings was also different from the past. Before, they were in a fiery red color, but now they were like glaring sunlight, as if a god had flew out from the sun. Chen Xiang, while in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm, had crippled a lot of true martial realm disciples from the Beast Martial Sect, True Martial Sect and the Free Immortal Sea. In these past 3 months, these 3 forces have been looking for Chen Xiang for trouble. However, even Chen Xiang's shadow could not be seen. The extreme martial sect's attitude was also very firm. They were not willing to pay, and were also not going to punish Chen Xiang. Many people knew that after entering the Black Tortoise mysterious realm, they were unable to use their true qi inside. However, Chen Xiang was somehow able to. That was why he could cripple this many true martial realm martial artists, and he had even crippled a few extreme realm martial artists. Moreover, he crippled all of them in one breath. When this information spread, many didn't believe it. However, as the time went on, many people found out that the true martial realm disciples of the Beast Martial Sect and True Martial Sect were indeed fewer. Only at this time was everyone convinced. The most shocking thing was that Chen Xiang had not even spared his own school disciples. However, his approach was supported by many people, because at that time all these true martial realm martial artists wanted to seize the big HEL spirit GRASS and those huge monster dawn that he had obtained. Accompanied with the tragedy that occurred inside the Black Tortoise mysterious realm, the Free Immortal Sea gradually surfaced. This was a giant force established off of the Chenwu mainland. Body knew the true circumstances about this force. However, rumor has it that they could be a super sect on par with the extreme martial sect. Because Chen Xiang could not be seen, the true martial sect, the Beast Martial Sect and the Free Immortal Sea had no way to target the extreme martial sect. Private fights between sects' disciples only included individuals. It had no connection with the sects themselves. Of course, the secret hidden was even more shocking, and that was Chen Xiang had all of a sudden killed a good few Nirvana realm martial artists, and also killed the dean of the Beast Martial Sect. Not many people knew about this matter, and they would not even reveal it, because it would not bring any benefits to anyone. This would only exacerbate conflicts between the few sects within the Chenwu mainland, and this would cause great chaos. The martial artists of both sides of these sects would suffer, and at last, the 5 devil sects would be the fishermen between the clam and the snipe star. TLN*. It is an idiom, More about it you can browse here http://cn. Hujiang. com/new/p429498/ In a huge square in the extreme martial sect, many disciples were surprisingly gathered, and the atmosphere was very serious. Gu Dongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming were standing on the stage, while in front of them, there were some old men and women whom many of the disciples have never been seen before. Just behind these old men, there was a team of capable and vigorous young men or burly middle-aged men, with an extremely cold complexion. Their whole body was saturated with powerful qi, and these people were also a bunch of individuals which many of disciples had never seen before. This made numerous extreme martial sects disciples secretly amazed, because today, the individuals gathered were disciples and high-level executives who were rarely seen. Elder Courtyard's elders, and also the disciples of the usually empty martial courtyard from 1 to 10 were also present. They were the backbone of the extreme martial sect. At this moment, there must be some important matter to announce. Since the events at the Black Tortoise mysterious realm had occurred, the extreme martial sect's members were jittery. The extreme martial sect had not only killed the dean of the beast martial sect, they had also killed 7 Nirvana realm martial artists of the beast martial sect, the true martial sect and the free immortal sea. This was something unprecedented. Nirvana realm martial artists had rarely fallen in these 10,000 years. However, this made many forces and many more people feel dread for the extreme martial sect, given that they had surprisingly started slaughter in such a way. Of course, no one else knew that all of these was the work of Qin Xiang. Everyone should know what happened this time. 10,000 years ago, the extreme martial sect also encountered such a crisis. At that time, we easily crossed it. While this time too, we will definitely be able to handle it. I know that currently, all of you are feeling restless, and some are afraid of other sects' revenge. Gu Dongchen loudly said. His voice reverberated in the whole extreme martial sect. Gu Dongchen, after a pause, continued speaking loudly. I have called everyone here today to tell you 2 things. First, our extreme martial sect is absolutely not afraid of other sects' revenge. If they dared to kill even a single disciple of our extreme martial sect, we will make them buried with 100 disciples of theirs. I, Gu Dongchen, will hold my words true. His words made every disciples of the extreme martial sect calm down. Their dean had spoken, so they would certainly be fearless. Second thing is regarding the new rules of the extreme martial sect's martial courtyard. Starting from today, aside from the extreme martial sect's elder courtyard and the extreme Dan courtyard, there will only be 50 martial courtyards, wherein there will be 15 inner martial courtyards and 35 outer martial courtyard. The 15 inner martial courtyards and 35 outer martial courtyards will be managed by bunch of true martial realm disciples or disciples with equal strength. They will be responsible for imparting martial skills. This is to enhance the overall quality of inner martial courtyards, and everyone is required to double their efforts. And every half a year, an assessment will be held, and if the disciples are not up to the standard, they will be sent to the HEL martial courtyard and accept the HEL training. Gu Dongchen's voice was extremely cold. Many people could not help but feel HI+ ran through their spine just because of his voice. HEL martial courtyard, what place was this? At this time, Elder Dan dryly coughed twice, silencing the noisy square. In the future, if welfare is not fixed, and if you want dawn, you have to deal with me. I have found some disciples are no longer cultivating and have always been idling about, not doing any mission, and yet they are receiving generous benefits. From now on, if you want to receive Dan, you need to use your strength and potential to prove yourself. The specific rules could be learned from the head of your own martial courtyard. Wu Kaming, at this time, also spoke in a serious tone. Starting from today, all of your rhythm must be a bit faster. The compet 1. Tians will be more brutal, and in turn, the rewards will also be even more lucrative. I want to train a bunch of outstanding disciples. In the coming days, the extreme martial sect will set up many martial art compet. 1. Tie-ins. In order to promote rivalry between everybody, it will allow more exchanges between everyone. Extreme martial sect suddenly had such huge changes, and this made many disciples feel extremely doubtful. They were contemplating whether or not the extreme martial sect did so in order to cope with the possible outbreak of great battle between sects. Disperse. Gu Dongqin's voice faded. His pupil fiercely contracted while looking at a pair huge and shocking firewings in the sky far away. Those were Chen Xiang's firewings, however. It was much larger than before, and it was also emitting a glaring aura like the sun. Elder Dan and Wu Kaming also immediately noticed. Both of them sighed in relief in their heart, however, they were extremely shocked. Surprisingly, Chen Xiang was able to return from the netherworld abyss, and from his firewings, it was evidently clear that his strength had been elevated a lot. With a burst of blazing hot qi shrouding over, everyone looked up and suddenly saw a pair of dazzling firewings. Although these firewings had become much larger, many people still recognized that these were Chen Xiang's true qi firewings. Chen Xiang had been missing for 3 months, and he was finally back. From Xianxia World. Chapter 187 Slaughter Qi. Chapter 187 Slaughter Qi. Only a few people knew about Chen Xiang falling into the netherworld abyss. Lu Shang didn't dare spread this information out, otherwise it would be very easy for suspicion to fall on his head. After all, Gu Dongqin made him keep it a secret. Chen Xiang swooped down from the sky and landed in front of those elders of the elder courtyard. He frowned and carefully glanced through those old men. Soon, his gaze transfixed on Lu Shang's figure. Upon seeing Chen Xiang had returned, Lu Shang was even more astonished in his heart. He remembered that before Chen Xiang fell into the netherworld abyss, he was heavily injured. It was absolutely impossible for him to come out. However, facts proved otherwise. He was currently standing alive and well right in front of everyone. Lu Shang had lived for so long, yet this was the first time he had been so panicked. However, he soon restored his calm demeanor. He decided that he would rather die than admit what happened, no matter what Chen Xiang's accusations were. Once Chen Xiang returned, he said nothing, just gave a deadly stare towards Lu Shang. The expression in Chen Xiang's eyes were giving off murderous intentions. Gu Dongqin and the other members of the trio had already noticed that something was about to happen. They started having some doubts and suspicions regarding this matter. After all, the Lu family still owed Chen Xiang the gambling debts, 3 building foundations dawn and a 9-sun flames fruit. It was quite painful for the Lu family, however, if Chen Xiang was dead. An old man of the elder courtyard loudly shouted, "Chen Xiang, you're too impolite." Just as that old man finished speaking, a large blade suddenly appeared in Chen Xiang's hands. He poured his true qi into this large blade as an azure aura burst out. Simultaneously, an intense slaughter qi gushed out from Chen Xiang's body, just as his figure disappeared. This made many elders shocked. Just as many of them wanted to act, Gu Dongqin coldly snorted. "All of you, hold your hands." Chen Xiang suddenly felt a pressure enveloping his body, constricting him for being able to swing down his blade. He had already reappeared in front of Lu Shang, and all the elders were extremely shocked. They didn't understand why Chen Xiang wanted to so recklessly and ruthlessly attack Lu Shang. They admired his courage even more, daring to do such things even in the presence of the dean. This was extremely disrespectful. Once the front row elders and a few true disciples were able to see what was happening, they were stunned. Chen Xiang actually dared to attack an elder. Looking at his posture, it was highly likely that he wouldn't regret killing that elder no matter what. Chen Xiang had even chopped up the dean of the beast martial sect and killed a few Nirvana realm martial artists. Was there anything he would be afraid of? At this time, his slaughter qi was unimaginable. He had been cultivating the slaughtering heart. Slaughter chi would be accu, mulat constantly, not only after killing someone. At the same time, it would also absorb the slaughter chi possessed by the deceased. It must be known that the dean of the beast martial sect, as well as those Nirvana realm martial artists, had all killed no small number of people. At this moment, the accu mulation of all that slaughter chi had gathered in Chen Xiang's body. Just imagine how frightening this was. Chen Xiang had already been restricted by Gu Dongchen, but that fierce slaughter chi was still surging out, enveloping the whole square. This made many people's heart tremble endlessly in fear. Ver ran down their spines. This vast and dreadful slaughter chi made everyone feel suffocated and short of breath. On the high stage, Gu Dongchen, Elder Dan and Wu Kaming couldn't help but be astonished. Even they were unable to understand how Chen Xiang possessed this level of slaughter chi at such a young age. These eternal type OONS had also accu, mulat, a large amount of slaughter chi, however Chen Xiang's amount was many times beyond theirs. If you ignored Chen Xiang's strength, just his slaughter chi alone would make it very easy for him to be mistaken for a Nirvana realm martial artist. Lu Shang was the closest person to Chen Xiang, and was also the target of his killing intent, which was why Lu Shang was also the one who could most clearly sense the formidability of the slaughter chi, which made him extremely horrified. Disperse. Chen Xiang had ignored the elders, and then tried to attack an elder, violating the rules of the extreme martial sect. Elder Wu will carry him down and severely punish him. Gu Dongchen loudly shouted. Wu Kaming flew down, arrived behind Chen Xiang, held his shoulder. Chen Xiang converged that unconsciously overflowing slaughter chi, however. His eyes still carrying murderous intentions towards Lu Shang. Lu Shang saw Chen Xiang was being taken away and proudly smiled. However, in his heart, he was still secretly worried. But after he thought about it, he was an elder. Both his ident. 1. Tai and strength were a lot stronger than Chen Xiang's. Furthermore, Chen Xiang had again provoked a bunch of people. He reckoned that the dean would not even hear out Chen Xiang's complaint. Chen Xiang followed Wu Kaming and left. In the extreme martial mysterious realm, in a relatively secret place, there was Elder Wu's residence. The two were there along with both Gu Dongchen and Elder Dan. Young martial uncle, it's good that you've safely returned. However, in the future, you should pay some attention. Don't do such outrageous things again, it makes my job very difficult. Gu Dongchen had a look of helplessness on his face. Humph, that elder surnamed Lu must die. Chen Xiang clenched his fist. Elder Dan coldly asked, Young martial uncle, did you truly fall down in the netherworld abyss? Chen Xiang snorted. I was precisely thrown down by that elder surnamed Lu. I was struck by his palm and seriously injured. If it wasn't for the black tortoise adamantal armor being able to resist that yin chi, I would already be dead. Wu Kaming's voice became extremely cold. We trusted that guy, yet he actually did this kind of thing. Just a moment ago, he was also very calm. He most likely thought that we would not hear you out or trust you. Gu Dongchen slammed his palm on a stone table and smashed it to pieces. His whole face was brimmed in anger. Not only had Lu Shang wanted to kill Chen Xiang, Lu Shang had also deceived them. This made Gu Dongchen extremely furious. Dean, you destroyed my table, Wu Kaming said with a bitter smile. It's just a table, nothing more. Are you planning to haggle about these things with me? Gu Dongchen suddenly discovered that this was not his home. He had overdone it. Seeing this, Chen Xiang secretly had a good laugh. Elder Dan gently said, It's good that you came back alive. Were you able to reach the bottom of the netherworld abyss? Even Huang Jitian had not reached the bottom during those days, while Chen Xiang currently had the black tortoise adamantal armor. Furthermore, those fire wings of his were also significantly larger, so it would not be very difficult for him to come up from below. Chen Xiang was very pleased upon seeing that these two martial nephews and niece were rather concerned about him, and were not as heartless as he had imagined. He happily smiled and replied, "Of course, I also brought back a good thing. Come, your martial uncle missed you very much down there." Chen Xiang took out 3 palm-size earth core divine fruit pulps, and placed it on 3 dishes. He let the trio have a taste. Although this earth core divine fruit was bred out by the earth core fire, it wasn't only beneficial to fire-attributed martial artists, it was beneficial to everyone. Looking at that tomato-like pulp wafting with a bizarre aroma, Gu Dongchen and the rest of the trio all wanted to taste this thing Chen Xiang retrieved from the bottom of the netherworld abyss. A piece for each one, they completely ate it all at once. For that kind of taste and flavor, all 3 of them were not short on praises. During their repeated praises, they were suddenly startled. The trio immediately sat down cross-legged, and circulated the earth core divine fruit's energy in their bodies. Chen Xiang also wanted to see how effective this earth core divine fruit was on Nirvana realm martial artists. Taking advantage of these 3 OONs digesting the benefits brought by the earth core divine fruit, he quietly left. Chen Xiang was ready to take a trip to the Herb King Mountain, and seek the Lu family to settle their accounts. Chapter 188 Wild Ambitions. Chapter 188 Wild Ambitions. Chen Xiang arrived at the martial courtyard of Yun Xiaodao and others. He immediately saw that both Yun Xiaodao and Zhu Rong were busy moving their things. Squinted dragon? Chen Xiang asked. He had not seen Yun Xiaodao and others for 3 months. To his surprise, he found the true qi within their body was actually a lot more vigorous. He secretly thought that these guys definitely had a fruitless encounter. Upon seeing that Chen Xiang had returned, Yun Xiaodao put down the tree in his hands and ran over, shouting with a loud laugh, "Elder brother Chen, you're truly a masterpiece. All of a sudden, you've crippled so many true martial realm martial artists." Yun Xiaodao had already received the news, and was extremely excited afterwards. However, he was also a little worried about Chen Xiang. It should be known that the majority of the true disciples he had crippled came from powerful families. Zhu Rong ran over, smiled and said, "Chen Xiang, in the Black Tortoise mysterious realm you must have acquired a lot of good things. If you have any intention to sell them, for the sake of the friends HI+P between us, I'll definitely give you a good price." Yun Xiaodao kicked his foot and shouted, "Go F.U.C. K your mother dead fatty. You are not even sparing your own friend and dare to try and cheat him. The deeper someone is acquainted with you, the more badly you'll make them suffer." At this moment, Su Weilong returned. When he saw that Chen Xiang was here, a stiff smile appeared on Su Weilong's face. "I thought you were going to hide for forever. What are you saying? I'm not going to be afraid." Chen Xiang laughed. "Ha ha, now I'm also a little eager to catch you. The Free Immortal Sea, the True Martial Sect, and the Beast Martial Sect have all posted a reward for you. Each one of them have offered 1,000,000 crystal stones. In addition, the families of the true disciples you crippled had also offered some rewards. Currently you are now worth 10,000,000 crystal stones." Zhu Rong loudly laughed and declared. Chen Xiang was shocked in his heart. A grand total of 10,000,000 had been posted as a reward for his head. This large bounty even made him tempted. However, after thinking for a while he came to realization. After all, he had crippled more than 100 true disciples. If the families of these disciples all posted even a tiny reward, reaching such a sum would be an obvious outcome. As early as a month ago, many people started creating squads one by one, as if they were hunting a precious beast. You have to be careful. I think not long after, Tianmen City will become very lively with many people waiting for you outside." Su Weilong said. Yun Xiaodao snorted. "It's not stopping there. Even some small scrubby families and a number of Sin organizations are eyeing for you. However, elder brother Chen's means are many, you should be fearless of them." Chen Xiang mischievously smiled. "As long as that statement of our dean still counts, I don't have anything to fear. If the people targeting down Chen Xiang had higher cultivation than him, then the entire elder courtyard of the extreme martial sect would be dispatched. Such power, no matter how many families gathered up, were still not enough to destroy or even match the fearsome strength of elder courtyard. Now only a few small forces under the support of squads came here to kill Chen Xiang. "Are you very busy right now?" Chen Xiang asked. "Not too busy, the allocation of the martial courtyard had nothing to do with us, we are only waiting for the allocation results to come out, and then we will directly go to that martial courtyard. Regarding the alterations of the martial courtyards, that's something outer courtyard's disciples have to worry about," Yun Xiaodao said with a smile. Chen Xiang took out 3 pieces of the earth core divine fruit's pulp. He had been together with Yun Xiaodao and the rest for so long and understood their characters and natures. They were worthy for a long-standing and deep-rooted friends. Hi+P. That's why Chen Xiang bluntly gave them this divine fruit to eat anyway, he would be able to grow them in the future. "This is some good stuff," Zhu Rong said as his eyes shone, while he rubbed his hands. Chen Xiang smiled and said, "Lao Zhu, if you want to eat it, you have to help me do one thing." "Just say it." Zhu Rong readily agreed. "Help me clearly understand the ins and outs of the Lu family." Chen Xiang lowered his voice and said. After hearing Chen Xiang's request, Zhu Rong nodded his head. Yun Xiaodao and Su Weilong glanced at each other. Knowing that Chen Xiang might do something that would make him go missing again, they were secretly worried. Xiaodao, Squinted Dragon. "You guys have always been trying hard to succeed your families, the compet. 1. Tie-in in your families is also no doubt very brutal. Blood brothers always each trying to hoodwink each other, are you not feeling tired?" Chen Xiang said with a happy smile. "Elder brother Chen, whatever you want to say speak freely." Yun Xiaodao sternly said, "Father is already tired, for me, my family is now the most disgusting place to be. Nevertheless, I'm still somewhat happy being here." Su Weilong also nodded. "If nothing else, I'm also too lazy to go back. At first, I didn't want to compete for the family position. However, some people thought that I would fight, and were worried that I'll pose a threat to them, which is why I was forced to compete with them, otherwise I'll be toppled." Zhu Rong also sighed. Among the children of these large families, there were not any deep feelings. Chen Xiang smiled and asked, "Have you ever thought of establishing Hi+ing your own force?" After hearing this, Yun Xiaodao, Zhu Rong and Su Weilong could not help but be startled. They had thought it over, however, it was not an easy thing to do. But now that Chen Xiang brought it up, it was clear from his words that he also wanted to establish his own force. "If we unite, we can secretly nurture our own force. Leave the dawn to me. Lao Zhu is responsible for resources, Xiaodao, you are responsible for training and nurturing, while Squinted Dragon is responsible for finding people who have intentions to join us." Chen Xiang explained. He already thought of this plan beforehand. "No problem, I'll also take out crystal stones. If Lao Zhu had to bear the cost alone, then he certainly wouldn't want to partake." 1p8. Yun Xiaodao immediately nodded in affirmation. I also agree, since we have a level 4 alchemist, I'm also extremely confident." Su Weilong agreed. Chen Xiang's alchemy speed and quality of the dawn he refined was obvious to everyone. If they had lot of dawn to offer, it would also be easy to rope in other people. Even more important, it would be easier to make their force grow stronger very quickly. Zhu Rong took a deep breath, smiled and said, "I also want to do this, it can be considered a big investment for me, a big business deal. However, in order for me to get back returns, it will probably take a very long time." Chen Xiang laughed and said, "Good, after you finished eating this thing, follow according with my guidelines. Xiaodao, you are responsible for gathering martial exercises and skills. Lao Zhu, you first go and gather intelligence about Lu family. Squinted Dragon, you are responsible for finding those who are not affiliated with any families, however, Those martial artists must be very hard working in cultivation. Zhu Rong asked, "Younger brother Chen, what do you want to do with the information about the Lu family?" Chen Xiang's complexion sank. "When I went to investigate the Black Tortoise Mountain, just a little away from the Tianmen city, I was attacked by 2 second-level true martial realm martial artists. They were both from Lu family or sent by Elder Lu. Since the Lu family wants me dead, I cannot allow them feel any better." After Yun Xiaodao and others heard, they suddenly came to realize why Chen Xiang suddenly attacked Lu Shang. Only they were curious, wasn't Chen Xiang carried down for punies? Hi+ing? How was he so quickly released? Zhu Rong and others ate the earth core divine fruit, and then entered a state of cultivation. Seeing this, Chen Xiang quietly departed and returned to the extreme Dan King courtyard. It was quiet in here. He looked everywhere but didn't see Wu Qianqian, so he was forced to return to his private room for alchemy. Since quite a while back, Chen Xiang wanted to see how quickly he could refine dawn after using the heavenly sun fire spirit.